This is the Action Cast, the only podcast that has an amazing penis at any rate. And now, our feature presentation. Yes, friends, it is once again that time of, I guess it's monthly. We do it now, but we're so inconsistent about when we do this monthly that I don't even know if we can really say it's that time of the month. But we're here anyway.
It's our time of the month.
It's our time. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here. Yeah, so hey, I'm Joe Drilling. That other voice you hear is Ethan Chang. We're the only ones here right now. Alex Rio should be along in a bit. I'm hoping that Eric Allen shows up at some point. We'll see who comes around, but it comes to be a point where if you put this thing off so many times, you just don't end up doing it. So we're doing it. So, we're talking about Golgo 13 tonight. We're talking about a couple of Golgo 13 movies. But before we do that, I guess we're going to talk about the news because we're the only two people here. And that seems like a good way to give Alex a little more time to show up. So, where's my news sound drop? That's what I need, though. There it is. Hey, here we go.
I'm going to try to say 10 times as much as I do in most news segments in this one, which still may be zero, because anything multiplied by zero is zero, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, I think you might have just done it.
Oh yeah, I guess I have spoken infinity more percent.
You might have just gotten there. But boy, there wasn't a lot of news for a long time because they weren't really making movies. For about a year there, since we started doing this, basically we haven't done a ton of news. A lot of these we've just skipped doing news because there really hasn't been any to speak of, and but now that Hollywood is sort of getting back into things, and movies that were supposed to come out while things were more locked down or coming out, the Batman was originally supposed to come out this past fall, I think, wasn't it? And that's coming out next month.
I'm not sure. This is how little I follow superhero news in the last 5 years. Is this the second one with the Twilight guy?
No, this is the first one.
The first one. Okay, yeah, that was supposed to come out a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, originally, Ben Affleck was going to do it. Matt Reeves was doing it, and he was going to do it with Ben Affleck. And then after Batman v Superman and Justice League, Ben Affleck didn't want to be Batman anymore, basically, it seems like, for the most part. Although I guess he's going to have a cameo in The Flash, maybe. I don't know. I think this is another reason why we stopped doing the news as much, which is because it would just be all about superhero movies. And I think I'm maybe the only one on this podcast who still regularly goes to see those movies, and some of them are still very good. I enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home quite a bit, but there is definitely a level of fatigue setting in on that. And I also feel like there are I wish, well, we can talk about the state of Hollywood another time, I suppose. But I guess I just broadly, I kind of wish that more lower budget, traditional action movies were being made than.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone who's on this show wishes that there were just in general more weird movies that were made that seemed like maybe not enough people touched them for them to not be weird. Mm-hmm. And so they end up being interesting. I think the reason why I at some points stopped watching all the MCU movies is not that they were bad. It's that it's kind of like that they weren't. It's like there was nothing bad or weird about them at all. They're so polished.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some. I think sometimes you do get some things that are weird. I think that Thor Ragnarok had some pretty strange moments, and the Guardians thing, like James Gunn and Taika Waititi are allowed to go a little bit more afield than um than you expect to see from like the Russo brothers or whatever. But I think, broadly, you're right. So, but yeah, we should talk about some news that isn't related. Well, so I guess let's get the superhero thing out of the way first, because there is a superhero news bit, which is that the Batman we were just mentioning is going to be almost 3 hours long. Which I mean, I tweeted about this, but that feels like it's not even really news, right? Like every one of those movies at this point, I can't remember the last Marvel or DC theatrical movie that was less than 2 hours long.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought that even the Nolan ones, although I kind of liked the first two of those.
Yeah.
Those were too long. Um, the perfect Batman movie has already been made. It's 126 minutes long. So
Which one is
in
that?
order to the 89, so
89.
in order to extend that runtime by an additional almost an hour, it's got to be probably like 55 minutes longer. I'm expecting the best movie ever made. It better be.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I feel like how long was Dark Knight Rises? Because I feel
I don't know.
like
I
that
think
was
that one
also
that was
quite
about
long.
100, maybe 155, 160.
Yeah.
And I did not like that movie at all. But I might be alone on this call about that. But
I mean, I think that The Dark Knight stands head and shoulders above the other two movies in that trilogy. I feel like we talked about that at the time, but like,
yeah,
a million years ago when we did this as an audio only thing that you could download and not a thing you streamed on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, um,
165 for Dark Knight Rises. It's like Lawrence of Arabia shit.
well, not, I mean, not quite,
Maybe not quite.
but, um, but yeah, I mean, Dark Knight is way better than the first or third one of those. The first one, I think, has an engaging story, but the action sequences are all fucking trash. They're all super shaky cam, super close up, um, all that stuff. And then the third one, I mean, I like Tom Hardy as Bane. The action sequences are a lot better, but the story is less interesting than either of the other two, and definitely um, the second one in Heath Ledger's Joker, and all that is just that's by far the best one of those. I also just like,
Yeah.
I'm generally, I feel the same way, and even when I say this, it's like the same. I sort of tread lightly in the same way that I do when I mention this, but I feel the way about now I can't even remember his name. Uh, who directed those
Schumacher?
movies? No. The Dark Knight.
Nolan.
Nolan. I feel the same way about Christopher Nolan that I do about Radiohead, which is
I think that is I don't even know what you're going to say, but that is a perfect comparison.
okay. Well, I'll tell you why I think that, and you can tell me if you're in the same boat. I think that they're both like good, like they're better than average, but people who are really into them think that they are like the last word on, music or on movies, and like I just cannot understand that perspective at all. Like Radiohead is a good band, Christopher Nolan is a good filmmaker, but the idea that Christopher Nolan is like the first, last, and only word in filmmaking now is, to me, ridiculous. And same vibe with Radiohead for me. Like the people are like, they're the greatest band that ever. They're the second coming of the Beatles, and I'm just like, nope, can't go there with you. Um, So when people, I think there are a lot of people who kind of like throw themselves on the altar of Christopher Nolan and are like, "Oh, he's like a serious filmmaker, so he like did Batman better than anybody." And I'm just like, "Yeah, Batman. Like, I mean, like you said, The Dark Knight Rises is fine, and Batman Begins is fine, um, and Dark Knight
And I would say,
you know,
I would say Dark Knight. Like if you said Dark Knight is a great movie, I wouldn't argue with that.
mhm.
But like I know that probably in my life from here on out, I might watch The Dark Knight one or two more times, and I am going to watch
Yeah,
Batman '89 10 more times
yeah,
plus.
yeah, oh
Like
yeah,
that's
hard to agree with
and
that.
then, yeah, and at a certain point, like you know, we have one life and then we die. What is a good movie? Like, isn't it one that you want to watch? Like,
Yeah, I struggle with that when I do ratings on like Letterboxd, like because I track all the movies I watch on Letterboxd, and they give you like a 5-star thing, and so I always try to rate the movie. Some movies I have not rated because they defy rating. Like when I saw Devil Fetus, I was like, I cannot rate this movie because this movie almost feels like anti art in a way that you just can't like rate. It won't allow itself to be rated.
yeah,
You just have to see Devil Fetus. And ideally, if you can see it at like 3 in the morning with like a theater packed to the. I mean, there aren't a lot of packed to the gills theaters these days, but this was in 2019, so it's like if you could see Devil Fetus in a movie theater full of like the kind of rowdy people who go to see a 12-hour overnight marathon of horror movies, that's the optimal way to see Devil Fetus. But you can't give it a star rating because it's Devil Fetus. Yeah, I mean that. And to see it on 35 millimeters, like, it's just, yeah, you can't. You can't.
yeah.
But I always struggle with like I did a rewatch of Friday the 13th last year. Watched all the Friday the 13th movies, including the remake, including Freddy versus Jason, and like I watch those movies and I try to sort of like um, it's like I watch something like Friday the 13th Part 4. And like you said, like that's probably a movie that I'll watch 10 more times in my life before I die. Provided I don't get hit by a bus next week or whatever, provided that I live a natural life.
Yeah, and I was trying to be like, although it's kind of depressing to do this, I was trying to be kind of realistic about that number of times. Like, if you asked me, like, will you watch Batman '89 100 more times? I was like, yeah. I say, yeah, of
Right,
course.
right.
If I just turned on the TV and it was on TV, I watched the whole thing.
But like if I say my life is about half, like my natural lifespan is about half over. If I live to be 80, I got another 41 years in me. I probably watch Friday the 13th Part 4 every 4 years, give or take. That sounds about right. So 10 more times, that's. I'll probably watch Bloodsport and Total Recall, 30 or 40 more times. Those at this point have become my sort of go to comfort food movie. Die Hard. I watch Die Hard usually once a year, and I usually watch Total Recall about once a year, and I usually watch Bloodsport about once a year. Um, so and that's the thing is like I can watch Bloodsport and be like, I understand that on a technical level, on an acting level, on just about every level, is this film as well made or competent of a film as, you know, like I guess Batman Begins? And the only place where I would say like it definitely wins is in the fight scenes, which I guess is important because Bloodsport is like pretty much comprised entirely of fight scenes. Um, but so how do I translate that in a ranking? Because I understand from the perspective of the filmmaking craft that Batman Begins is probably a better movie, but at any given moment, if someone was like, well, let's either watch Bloodsport or Batman Begins, like I would say 9.5 times out of 10, I'm gonna be like, let's watch Bloodsport. You know?
Yeah, and I don't know if you need to completely veer toward one side or the other on like how you're judging movies that way. But I mean, yeah, I think it does say something when I see a movie and I can say that was great. I really enjoyed that. I don't think I'm ever going to want to see that again. Which is basically how I felt about all three of the Nolan ones. Although I have gone back and seen pieces of The Dark Knight since, and I that's a movie that I wouldn't mind watching again. But yeah, I don't know. It's just different, and I mean, I think everybody knows the difference between something that you would if you were like staying at the parents' place for the holidays and you saw you know a chunk of the first 20 minutes of it on cable, you're going to for sure sit through the rest because it's a part of your childhood.
Right.
And a movie that's kind of in that middle zone, like where I would say Batman 89 is, I have that relationship with that movie, sort of. This is a great Golgo 13 talk, by the way.
Oh, we're still
Like
in the news, technically.
yeah, like I think that was the first. Well, actually, this wouldn't even just be for me. Wasn't the Batman 89? It was. I think it may have been like the first VHS tape that was like priced aggressively for consumer ownership. Like it costs like
So,
$25 instead of $80 or something.
the story that I have heard, and this is based on a documentary or two that I have seen, is that Basket Case is actually the first VHS that was aggressively.
I would have turned out a different person.
Yeah, like Frank Henenlotter said, this is in an interview from Rewind This, if I'm remembering correctly. He basically said, like, yeah, because it was so novel, everybody was selling tapes for $40 or $50. And I told the distributor, like, no, like, let's sell this one for 20. And he's
Yeah.
like, and this movie sold so many copies on VHS that like the New York condo that he lives in, like in Manhattan, he's like, Basket Case VHS paid for my house, basically, or not his house, but his condo in New York or his apartment in New York
Yeah.
that he owns. And he's like that because it was so aggressively priced. But I mean, it's like I remember some movies. This is a really weird one that sticks out to me, and I guess I don't know why exactly it sticks out to me, but I remember Hackers was priced at like the rental store like $80 per tape price for like years after it came out. Like I want to say that movie came out in like what 95, 96, and I don't think it was until like 99 or 2000 that it was like quote price to own, at like 15 or $20. And I remember, I don't know why that sticks out to me. I think I had a friend who was like really stoked when it finally came down to like normal consumer price.
I remember having this, what I now, I think I understand that this is a totally flawed understanding, that when I was a kid, that if you went to whatever, like Best Buy or Blockbuster Music or whatever one of those stores was then that sold VHS tapes.
Suncoast Video.
Suncoast Video, we had one of those. Those prices that you'd see, like $25 or whatever, were not what the rental stores were paying, and the rental stores had to buy the tapes through some kind of special channel where they were also owning the licensing to be able to rent. Which I'm now. This is one of those things where like you grow up and you realize that the coordination, like you are now an adult, and your assumption that adults would be capable of that kind of coordination of these like multiple sets of rights in the market. It's like no one's doing that.
No one's doing that.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, someone's doing that because they're like that's literally their job to do it, but nobody else is doing that for sure. And I think that like I had a mom and pop rental store where I lived called Village Video. That I mean, I'm sure if the guy who ran that place, his name was Don Olson, he was the nicest. To look at this guy, you would have thought he was some kind of hustler. He had gold rings on just about every finger, gold bracelet, gold necklace. He wore glasses that were like half shaded like sunglasses, but I'm pretty sure they were eyeglasses, but he wore them inside. He was bald with a ponytail. He just looked like looking back on it, as an adult now, like he's the kind of dude that you would look at and be like, that dude is hustling somebody for something somehow. Yeah. But as a kid, and even my parents now still say, like, when he comes up, like, he was the nicest. He was so nice to all the kids. And like, some people might be like, oh, well, but like, no, it wasn't like that. He wasn't a weirdo, but he was just nice to kids. He got along with kids. He not just me, but all my friends that also went there when we were that age. It's like when Don got and of course he was older. He was probably twice the age of my dad. He died suddenly of aneurysm when I was about 10 years old, but he ran the video store until then. And when he got a Super Nintendo to start renting games, like all the kids in town like kind of went down there that didn't get one right away, which was most of us, right? Because your parent, when you're 9, your parents aren't running out in August to buy you a Super Nintendo. It's like wait for your Christmas or your birthday or whatever. And he, showed everybody Super Mario World and let us take turns and check it out and all this stuff, and like that was just the kind of guy he was. But he was also the kind of guy who, like, if he could avoid paying $80 for a VHS tape, he probably was finding a way to avoid paying $80 for a VHS tape. So who knows? But I know, and then now of course, like, you see all these weird artifacts. Like, I follow Instagram accounts that do like there's a horror ads Instagram account that I follow, and they show a lot of the pitch tapes that would get sent to places like Village Video and other, mom and pop, and probably the chains too, but like where it's like Brad Dourif is doing Chucky, and they do like the whole thing with the puppet and is talking about like, Child's Play 1 like did so well in the rental market. You got it. We're bringing out Child's Play 2, and it's only $79.99 for you distributors. So put in your orders now, and you'll get this cardboard.
Saying words like CP, whatever, like conversion and ROI.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And get this. I mean, I guess he must have been doing that at some rate, because I remember that was a Child's Play 2 or 3 that had him with cutting the head off the Jack in the Box on the cover. Because
I've only ever seen one Child's Play movie. I saw it when I was 9 and I had nightmares. I've never seen another one since.
The first one is the only one that's worth a shit. But the VHS box, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3, has Chucky cutting the head off a Jack in the Box with like hedge trimmers, and there was a cutout, a big cardboard standee of that in Village Video when I was young. I remember that. So he must have been getting some of the stuff from the distributor, because he'd get all those stand-ups and stuff. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, was when a tape was finally priced to own, and you could buy it and own it and watch it as many times as you wanted. Like, that was a big deal. And yeah, for me too, with Batman, like when people ask like, what were the movies you watched over and over again as a kid? For me, it was Batman 89, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was actually my grandma taped it off HBO for me. And actually, my grandma also taped, HBO did Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 back to back one time, and she taped the whole thing on like an extended play tape for me. So I had one tape, both Ghostbusters movies on it. And like Back to the Future 2, all 3 Back to the Futures, but Back to the Future 2 especially. And for some reason, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which like I now recognize as the weakest of the original, like, trilogy that was all made at the same time, basically.
Maybe it's the most, fun for kids of the 3. I guess it's got the least talky one, maybe.
It is and it has the heart ripping scene, which as a kid I was absolutely fascinated by the heart ripping. The heart ripping and the mine carts, I guess, and the gross food scene, even though that's like kind of racist. Like at the time it was like, oh, they're eating all this gross stuff, and like when you're a kid, that's cool and fun and whatever. So Batman 89 was one of those tapes for me too. So I've definitely seen that movie way more times than I think. I've seen that movie more times already than I think I'll ever see The Dark Knight, and I'll watch it more times.
I remember we had there was a drugstore that was like a half mile from me growing up. It was called Farmore, with a PHAR, like pharmacy.
Yeah. I remember those.
-MOR.
Yeah.
I think that was you may have had that because I was Midwest, right, and I remember that chain died because the owner basically got I think convicted with white collar crimes. Like he was like embezzling money for years from the company or something, and they collapsed. Yeah. But that we used to go there. I would rent Super Nintendo games there. They had better prices than Blockbuster. I remember thinking Blockbuster was so expensive then.
Yeah.
But I remember that my dad bought a copy of Batman, which I think that was the first. We had a bunch of movies taped off cable.
Right.
But I think that was the first movie that we had that was like a commercial release in the box. And I remember going to Farmore, and they had like kind of like a stand-up little like diamond display of a bunch of boxes of Batman, which is the first time I'd ever seen that. So like the point is, I've been watching that movie repeatedly since
1989
whenever that was,
or 1990 probably.
1990. But as an adult, I every couple of years I get the urge to watch that movie, and every time I'm like, oh, this movie's great. Like, this is not a movie where I'm just kind of like reliving, some kind of,
Nostalgic.
my neural pathways from when I was a kid. Like, this movie's really good, and I find new things that I like about it. So like, I think that sets that movie apart from something like, I don't know, like what would be something that is like where you're not finding
Indiana
that
Jones
kind of value in it.
Doom.
Yeah, like maybe. Like I watched this, like I like this because I watched it 50 times before I was 20 years old.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I would say when I was a kid, I would say that Back to the Future 2 was my favorite movie, and now it's not even my favorite Back to the Future movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now I recognize the first one is a much better film in every possible way, right? The second one is still a lot of fun. I enjoy it, but the first one is like a way better film. The interesting thing though is that I find it weird now when I go back and watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit that I was that into it as a kid. I mean, I guess like it's got, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Mickey Mouse. It's got Daffy Duck and Donald Duck interacting and Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse interacting, all that stuff. But like the first time I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit as a grown-ass adult, I was like, I missed so much of this movie as a child. Like, that's a movie that has gotten way better with age because I understand like all of the references and I get all of the sex jokes and all of the like the patty cake thing right over my head as a child, right? Like you like, you know what I mean? And dabbling in watercolors, Eddie, like you don't like that joke doesn't land with an 8-year-old, but like now as an adult I'm like, oh right. And all of the noir, like, I mean it's a noir satire and it's like when you're 8 and you haven't seen The Maltese Falcon or The Big Sleep or haven't read anything by Dashiell Hammett, you're like, I don't know what the hell that is, so that's another one that I think holds up better.
It looks like Alex just signed on, and Alex, for your benefit, we are talking about news item number 1.
Yes, but
you haven't gotten to either movie.
Haven't gotten to either movie, but we'll move this along. Well, we waited 15 minutes. We were kind of hoping you'd show because you said you were on your way home, like at like 9:30. Okay. So we hung out for a bit and then we just started with news. But we'll windsock through some of this news real quick because now that Alex here, I don't want to spend.
Oh yeah, we got to do more news.
We don't. But I do want to bring this up because we talked about it a little bit before we started streaming, and I want you to hear it because I think it's funny. So apparently, Fight Club has finally been released in China, and the ending.
Oh no!
Is completely so right after he shoots himself in the mouth and then tells Marla that you met me at a very strange time in my life. Before the buildings blow up, it cuts to a black screen with text on it that says, and I quote, "Through the clue provided by Tyler, the police rapidly figured out the whole plan and arrested all criminals, successfully preventing the bomb from exploding. After the trial, Tyler was sent to lunatic asylum, receiving psychological treatment. He was discharged from the hospital in 2012. And that's how Fight Club ends in China.
That's the director's cut.
Yeah, right. That's the director's cut. I mean, in the novel,
that's the U.S. version.
Right. In the novel, he does go to an asylum, and it's one of those things. Have either of you guys read the novel Fight Club?
No.
So I recommend it. Chuck Palahniuk's a really good author. I also recommend Choke, which is the movie Choke is not as good as the movie Fight Club. Sam Rockwell's pretty good in it, but it's like it just doesn't work as well for me as a movie. But the novel's good. But at the end of the novel Fight Club, the narrator ends up in an asylum, but all the staff in the asylum all have like bruises and welts and scars, and every time they see him and walk past him, they say like, "We're waiting for you to come back, sir. Like, we're ready for you to return, sir." And he thinks he actually successfully killed himself when he put the gun in his mouth, so he thinks he's in heaven, and all these people are telling him that they're waiting for him to come back, but he's actually just in an asylum. So that kind of is the way the story ends. And also the bombs don't go off because Tyler made them wrong. Which is kind of a weird like non-note to end it on, which is like it's all these bombs and all these buildings, and like oop, they just didn't go off because we fucked up the way to make the explosive, which is not a super satisfying ending, I guess. But that is how it ends in the book. So, but anyways, that's a funny one that I wanted to touch on.
It's just the same thing as like, and then I've talked about before, and then Ip Man won World War II, like
right, yeah, right.
Or Ip Man
Right,
won the
right.
fight, and then China won World War II, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
sure. There you go. So I guess I'm actually gonna let this maybe roll a little bit into Ethan saying something, because Slash Film has an article up on which John Wick movie has the highest kill count, and it's Chapter 2, apparently, with 128 kills, followed by Chapter 3 with 94 kills, followed by Chapter 1 with a measly 84 kills.
Mm-hmm.
But you've watched them all now, Ethan, so you should very quickly. And Alex, you still haven't watched those, right? You have not seen the John Wick movies?
I saw, I think, like half to 1/3 of the first one.
And
No.
it bummed you out because you saw it at an age of your life where you understood the value of life.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah, we talked about it after the show last time. Had not seen any of those movies, and it was the type of situation which actually, before we started, Joe, you said something about Drive. Maybe that was after we started recording.
No, that was before. There's a lawsuit that I guess we can touch on. That's really
well. So there's this category of movies, or at least I've always sort of had this category of movies that there's always a couple movies in this list where they come out, and because of like the images I've seen from them and who made them and which people I know liked it, which people I know didn't like it, I know that I'm going to love it. So I just don't watch it. Because it's almost like, okay, I can count on this. This is going to be like when it's a rainy day and I need to see something that I know I'm going to love, but it's going to be fresh to me. I know I can watch this. So I have never seen Drive. I know that there's no chance that I wouldn't love it.
You should watch
Drive.
It's real good.
Drive. Yeah, you should watch Drive. It is real good.
So the
I know
John
what you're
Wick
talking
movies,
about, though, exactly. Like,
yeah. And I don't know. Maybe this is the thing I only started doing in my like 30s, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I knew that I would love the John Wick movies. Yeah, and I just never watched them. And then I had the occasion to over Thanksgiving week. I was staying out in a like a cabin, basically like a coastal rental with my girlfriend and her family. And we had a day or two where it was totally rained in, and we decided that we would just watch a whole bunch of Keanu Reeves movies, and ended up watching both of the first two John Wicks, and then we watched the third one a few days later. And yeah, I mean, I think I was right to sit on it. I loved it. I loved all of them. But I think when we were talking about this after the last show, you were telling me that I was assuming that my personal feelings about how the three of them stack up against each other was like conventional, like the kind of conventional opinion. And you said that maybe they're not.
Yeah, well, remind me. What are you? I think the conventional opinion is that one is the best one, and I think people generally say that they think 2 is the weakest.
Okay, yeah. Then that's how I felt. The first one, it's got great action, but also it has just like that like reptile brain emotional arc that like is so compelling, and you want him to like your lust for his kills is so powerful. Yes. On account of Dog.
Yes.
And it's just simple, great action movie storytelling. Great action. Don't need to really say why John Wick is good.
Kevin Nash.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was in the. I forgot that was the first one. The second one.
I think you have to give some credit to both Alfie Allen, who plays just like Yosef, is such a sniveling little bitch that you just cannot wait.
Yeah.
For John to get him, right? And it's still actually kind of similar to Golgo 13, right? Like, John's going to get him. You know, like Golgo's gonna get his man. It's the same, but like the question is like, how is he gonna get him, and when is he gonna get him?
I think people say in real life that somebody has a punchable face. So I think the action movie version is a shootable face. He's got a shootable face in that movie.
Also, Michael Nyqvist as Vigo is great. Just like you get it when he has the phone conversation with John Leguizamo, where he's like, you struck my son," and he's like, "Yes, sir, I did," because he stole John Wick's car and shot his dog, and he just goes, "Oh," and hangs up the phone. Yeah. You're like, yeah,
great movie. If it stood on its own, it would be an eternal classic, I think.
Yeah.
And then I thought that the second movie, I think in most ways it's worse, and in the biggest way that it's worse is it just like the actual arc, the mini arc of the second movie, I didn't think was compelling. I forget what the villain's deal is in that movie.
John owes him a favor.
Yeah, that's right.
Because he helped him with it. He's like a marker, like a blood, he's got like a bloody thumbprint and a little thing that he's like a favor he can call in whenever he wants. And since John is back in now, he can call in the favor. And the favor is to have John kill his sister, which he knows will set off like a gang war and have all the crime families or whatever coming after John. So
right. And I just thought that plot line was not so compelling, and that character was not so compelling.
Same.
But the action choreography is better than in the first one, where it is already excellent in the first one. And then I feel like they introduced the concept of this marker thing, where I do really like. I think one thing that is still good about the second movie, even though I didn't super love it, is that like the world that it builds that plays into the third movie is good. I like how many little arcane traditions there are in this
also
underworld.
The I don't know if stunt casting isn't the right word because they're not famous enough to be stunt casting, but just like the sort of cameos from like David Patrick Kelly and fucking Franco Nero is in John Wick 2. Like
is he? Who is he?
He is Julius in there, and he's like a retired or he asks John about being retired. He's not in it for very long. They don't fight or anything, but he's
oh my god, I didn't know that was him
for like a minute. It's just
I didn't know that was him, and my brother, formerly me, had a cat that was named after Franco Nero, so I should have recognized him. Now I feel bad.
Yeah.
And then the third movie, Halle
has
Berry.
The fight in the weapons museum for some reason. Like there's a weapons museum for some reason.
That fight in that knife factory or whatever that was is so fucking good. It is that to me. I saw that scene and it's like it doesn't matter if the story of this movie is even worse than in the second movie. I'm usually not the type of person who watches action movies for the action scenes. I weirdly I've established on this show that I tend to like the grimy and quiet and the parts of action movies where nothing is happening and it's boring, and the parts in it where the filmmaker's fucked up politics are revealed.
Right.
I felt differently about John Wick 3. Every action scene in that movie was delectable.
Yes.
That one
and the fight with Mark Dacascos in the big glass room is super good.
Yes, yeah.
And and Halle Berry is like extremely good boys, doing very good boy things.
That scene was a little long, but it was also, it was great. But that knife scene, ridiculous, unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what I thought about him.
Maybe that's everybody. That's Golgo 13.
Maybe that's not I thought when I told you that initially, I thought that maybe people had that the fandom had declared the third one the best one, which
they might have. I think the first one is the best one because it has the most like you said, it has the most satisfying emotional arc, right? Like it's Like in the third one, there's the whole thing about like, why do you still want to live? And it's like to carry on my wife's memory or whatever. And I'm like, that's not as compelling as like these dudes killed my dog and stole my car.
Yeah, and it's like a cheap arc, but it's that's exactly what I wanted.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, those movies are great. Related to that, very very quickly, Iko Uwais is in a new movie that's coming to Netflix apparently on February 17th called Fistful of Vengeance. It has Louis Tan and Iko Uwais, and I guess they're cops or something. It looks like they kick a bunch of people in the face. That's really, that's all you need to know.
I mean, I could have told you that.
Right? Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, that looks good. And I think really that if we want to talk about the lawsuit very very briefly, just because you mentioned Drive, but famously we talked. Well, it's not famous that we talked about it, but there was famously a lawsuit about 11 years ago. Where a woman sued whoever the distributor was for the misleading trailers on Drive, thinking that it was going to be like Fast and the Furious, and then of course like it's not. It's actually this very like quiet, sort of ponderous crime film that is punctuated by moments of extreme violence and car chases, but for the most part it's just like about this guy. It's like this character study about this guy who doesn't talk, but then also he stomps a dude's face in at one point and like fucks people up with that claw hammer. So it's got that going for it. But similarly, two dudes are suing whoever distributed Yesterday, which is not an action movie. It's a Danny Boyle movie about a guy who wakes up one day and realizes he's the only one who knows who the Beatles are, and so then he makes himself super rich because he passes himself off as having written all the Beatles songs. I did not watch that movie because I do not like the Beatles, but apparently the trailers had Ana de Armas in it, and she had a small role, and she was cut from the movie after test screenings, and these two guys are suing because the trailer showed Ana de Armas and they watched the movie and they didn't get any Ana de Armas, and they're like big mad about it to the point of trying to sue for $5 million over it. So I don't think that's going to be terribly successful, but apparently the Drive lawsuit like struggled on for 5 years, and it was in the years when we were no longer doing this show, so we never talked about how that like turned out, but yeah, that went on for 5 years apparently. So there you go.
How did that end?
Well,
everyone was sad.
Yeah, right. Everyone was sad that it went on so long. Let's see. I assume it eventually got dismissed because I mean it's ridiculous, right? Like, let's see. The Hollywood Reporter has an article. Skip the ad. From 2017. Saying that it was still ongoing. The defendants demanded a judge stomp on the brakes. Let's see. The film violated Michigan's Consumer Protection Act. A judge rejected the plaintiff's claim in March 2012, concluding that there were no misrepresentations of material fact and that there was no subliminal anti-Semitism. Huh? Thereafter, the plaintiff tried to get the judge removed from the case for being an anti-Semite himself, and the dispute went to a Michigan appeals court, which in 2013 handed down a decision that stated in part, any affirmative representations the trailer made about being a racing movie were not inaccurate. The movie does contain driving scenes. Moreover, plaintiff, contrary to her hyperbole, does not refer us to any actual violence against or even criticism of Jews that has resulted from the film being shown. The list of defendants grew to an alleged conspiracy, including Nicholas Winding Refn, Albert Brooks, Sony Pictures, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Google, and AMC. Yeah, and I think it just got dismissed shortly after that because it turned into this weird like the movie is an anti-Jew movie like thing yeah, which. I mean, I haven't seen that movie since it was new, but I definitely don't remember. I mean, Albert Brooks is one of the bad guys, I guess, but like,
yeah,
I don't remember him being like this ridiculous Jewish caricature or anything that you know.
I mean, I believe the or I don't want to call it mafia, but I don't know, like the whatever the gangster type people who were in that movie. They are.
Yeah, they
I
were.
believe
Yeah,
they
that's
were
right. Ron
Jewish.
Perlman, right? Ron Perlman has that speech about how the Italians always fuck with them
Yeah,
because they're Jewish gangsters or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I'm like, maybe there's something going on with that,
I
but like,
guess. No, I don't think there
I
is.
mean, maybe
I don't
no,
think
no, no.
there.
I mean, like maybe that was their
Well, yeah,
claim.
right.
Like, is
That
that
right.
like
Yeah,
this movie's anti-Semitic because like they think Jews are all gangsters or something, and it's
right.
like, what? That's not.
Well, boy, oh boy, as someone who is part Italian, I have a lot of lawsuits I need to go file. Excuse me.
So what
I'm
I'm learning
also
here
I'm
is
50%, baby. Let's get a joint
Let's
lawsuit
do it.
going.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I learned on our last episode that the line that I from the recut of Rocky 4 where the guy says he's had one professional fight and one man is dead. I was under the impression that that was in the actual theatrical cut of Rocky 4 because it's in the trailer. I found out that it's actually not in the
It's
movie.
not in
It
the
made the
movie.
trailer, and then the that scene was restored for the new cut, which I did not like. But if I can only find some kind of political angle to approach Rocky 4, I'm not sure what that would be, but if I can find one, then I can probably sue Sylvester Stallone
Yeah, probably.
for not including that line in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So hey, let's talk about Golgo 13.
Speaking of like bad political takes,
I don't. So honestly, I don't think, and Ethan might disagree, and I mean, it sounds like maybe you disagree with me. I don't think there is really anything overtly, specifically political about the character Golgo 13.
no, not
Like,
really.
So there I have to mention this because I know Ethan is gonna have feelings about this. There is an actual Golgo 13 comic that came out in 2001 wherein it is revealed that Golgo shot the hanging Chads to give Bush the the victory in
I bet so,
Florida.
dude. That is absolutely in line with what Golgo 13 is. It's like a thing where it's like quote unquote like realistic, but the things they come up with are completely insane.
Right.
Like,
I
yeah.
read a story. So I read a couple of the stories to prepare for this as well because I wanted to have
Yeah.
like a sense of the source material. And one of the
Sure.
stories I read involves him
Killing
his not killing a person.
Okay.
A guy hires him to shoot his wife's earring off because he wants her to get scared that she might be killed because she's like tied up with this is an issue, or not an issue, but like an arc from 1973, I think. And so the deal is that she is married, she's wealthy, but she's married to a wealthy guy, and she's funneling their money to radical leftists, the Weather Underground. Like, her first husband was killed because he was part of the Weather Underground bombings in the late 60s, and so the cops shot and killed him. And her husband is worried that the cops are going to like extrajudiciously execute her as well. So he pays Golgo 13 not to kill her, but to snipe her earring so that she'll think she's the target of an assassination attempt, so that she will stop funneling money to the Weather Underground, so that she will not be extrajudiciously killed by the police.
Right.
Because the
Classic
perfect
hero's journey.
right, because the perfect machine of snipe is the only one who could shoot an earring off a woman's head and not harm her at range. Obviously.
Absolutely. Obviously.
But
We knew that.
But the guy's yacht is bugged, and so the cops just kill her right before Golgo shoots her earring off. And then he has to figure out who killed her so that he can clear his name. Because the thing with Golgo 13 is that he always does the job unless he is betrayed. And if he is betrayed, then whoever betrayed him must die. Which we find out is the movie kind of is really, that's a lot of what the movie is about. The anime movie is about, is someone fucks him over, kind of, and it's time for him to.
Not really.
No, yeah, not really. I guess not really, but somebody comes after him.
Somebody comes after him.
To try
absolutely.
to get vengeance for one of his
jobs. He does his job.
He does
successfully.
his job. Yes.
Yeah. Because he's Golgo 13 and he always does
the job. So
what a fucking boring ass character, dude. This guy sucks.
So can I tell you something? I fucking love Golgo 13. Like the more lately that I've been revisit, like I watched this movie. So this is the anime.
Well, so
is
hang on. Are we talking about the anime movie or the live action?
Well, no. Let's talk about Golgo 13. I guess a little bit first. The reason we're doing this is because, Saito, who was so this is the thing that I also think is just super cool in general. This guy, started so he did a couple of official James Bond like manga. He didn't like calling it manga. He called it gekika, which is like adult manga in Japan, I guess. Like it's not a comic, it's a graphic novel, like that. That sort of vibe, right? So he called it gekika, but he did some James Bond comics, and then he created this character Golgo 13, who is an even more amoral version of James Bond, basically.
Yeah.
So
it's basically like, so in the email thread, like when I was telling you that I was gonna be late, I described it as like joyless fun. And I think that's what it is. It's literally, it's James Bond, but like, what if you took all the like, it's like old James Bond. It's like Sean Connery James Bond, but like take all the camp and fun out of it, but do the same thing.
Yeah, kind
of. It's just like, oh, well, that's like not very interesting, I guess. And it's like, it manages to be interesting because it's insane.
Right.
Like the rest of it is insane.
So I think what I like about so first of all, he's until the death of Saito, and even now his estate owns the character. This was a creator-owned character that had run continuously from 1968 until
now it's still going.
It took one hiatus. It took one hiatus, and it was during the beginning of the COVID pandemic. It took like a 2-month hiatus, but it has run in Business Jump every week, I think, right? Business Jump is a weekly.
I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Because the stories are short, like the chapters are short. Because I read a couple of the things, and like they're longer than like a Prince Valiant, like a Sunday Prince Valiant comic, but they're shorter than like a Marvel comic book. You know, like even like a single issue comic. So I would imagine that, and they're all in black and white. So I would imagine that they're probably weekly. So dude and his studio, because like he just owns a studio that like it's not like he's not doing this by contract with Marvel. He just does it with the studio that helps him. And as he got older, it seems like the studio basically did like most of the heavy lifting, and he kind of just was like, like do this, or like I have an idea. He wasn't super duper involved, but he still like owned the character and ran the studio, and they were doing weekly installments every week until 2020, and then they took like a 2-month break, and then they went right back to doing weekly installments of this story, of this, and like from what I understand,
excuse me, it appears that it is not in Business Jump. It is in, of course, Big Comic.
Sorry, I apologize.
Who could forget?
Yes, I thought it was in Business Jump for some reason. Is that Fist of the North Star? Was Fist of the North Star in Business Jump? That might be
that's Shonen Jump. Come on.
Oh, that is actually Shonen. Yeah, that is actually Shonen. That seems too violent for Shonen Jump, but yeah, I guess it is.
I mean, it was a different time.
True.
Also, there's some violent shit in Shonen Jump, like
but like One Piece and Naruto and Dragon Ball, like compared to Fist of the North Star, like
like Jujutsu Kaisen is in it. That's all about like fucking fucked up weird monsters that eat people and shit, and like I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. But I didn't look it up, but I feel like this has to be one of, if not the longest still running.
No, it's the longest. It's been running since 1968, and he even said like, "I want this to keep going when I die," and it is.
Yeah, and it is. And the thing that I like about it, what got me out of American comics, is that there was so much lore stacked on.
Yeah,
Not, I mean,
absolutely.
they can be. They definitely can
No,
be.
what you're launching into now is why I think it's
Right,
bad.
right.
That's why I
They
don't
they
like
just
it.
stack, like they have to keep doing stuff and stack lore on top of lore on top of lore, and it's like you need like a cheat sheet to know what the fuck is going on with these people. So like my approach to American comics, superhero comics specifically, I should say, now is like if someone tells me a certain like arc, like a trade paperback of something is a good like, oh yeah, that Winter Soldier arc from Captain America, like if there's a hardcover version it's really good, you should just read that. Like then I'll just read that. But like I'm not
Yeah.
I got out of monthly comics like 20 years ago at least because it's just like I
Yeah.
just don't
Well, I have a
want to
friend who
keep
like
up with.
he does keep up with that stuff and he likes it. I mean, that's fine, but he knows that we all hate it. So like when he'll every once in a while like something will come up where he'll be reminded of something. He'll be like, "Well, I know you guys don't care, but we'll all be like, fuck, man." And he starts going on something about how like Iceman's got a gun and then like, you know what I mean, or
Right.
whatever. And it's like I okay, we're all like, God damn it, dude, shut up. And he knows what he's doing when he's doing it
Yeah,
too.
right.
So it's like,
Right.
yeah.
But
Anyway,
like
but it,
Golgo 13 is like apparently, and again, like
yeah,
even the stuff that's available in English is like a sliver of what has been written in Japan, but apparently it's like Saito was aggressively anti-lore. So like even after, 53 years or whatever, we still don't know his real name. We don't know where he came from. We don't know where he learned how to be like the super badass sniper. We did like
yeah,
he just refuses to explain any of that shit. We don't know how he got an amazing penis at any rate. We
yeah.
we don't know any
Well,
of that. And it's just like I like that. I kind of appreciate that. And like I got this came a lot of this stuff came up because he died, and so there was like a Retronauts podcast where they talked about the comics a lot, and then there's this YouTuber that I like, goes by Kaiser Beams, and he's a lot younger than we are, I'm pretty sure, but he reviews like almost exclusively 80s and 90s anime.
yeah,
And
good.
he did an episode about The Professional, the movie that one of the movies that we're going to be talking about, and talked about it a lot. And I've also been playing Hitman 3 lately. And so all of this kind of came together for me at the same time. And I don't know, man, it's so different from a lot of the other stuff that's out there. And I get you saying that it's boring because he's not an interesting character, but like I kind of like the fact that the meat of each story isn't like
It's the story. It's not like the character. What's
right.
the lore? Why did he become an assassin? I don't give a shit. Tell me a cool story
Right.
about an
Tell
assassin.
me a cool story about how he's gonna figure out how to like in the anime, like okay, we think he's gonna shoot this guy, but like these are the sniper points available, so we'll have to like
Yeah,
watch all these points, but like oh, there's this billboard over here, but like no, there's another building in front of it, so like he couldn't possibly do that, so like don't worry about that. We'll like watch these other 3 points, and then it's like, sir, I found the target. He's on that billboard, and they're like, what? And so you're like, as the audience, you're like, how is he going to pull this off? And that's what I think is cool about these stories.
alternatively, as soon as they said, "Well, there's no way he could shoot from there," I said, "So he's gonna
He's
shoot
gonna,
from
but
there."
even if you say even thinking that like he's gonna shoot from there, you kind
Yeah,
of want to know
yeah,
like how, like what's he gonna do to make it work.
yeah,
And then it turns
yeah,
out that there's an office on on one of the floors that if one company has the whole floor, so you can see from one window out the other side to the other window. So he shoots through two windows and into the building that's next
yeah.
door and kills the guy. And like I was just talking to my wife before we started recording about like it reminded me of the second Mechanic movie with Jason Statham, not the remake, but the sequel to the remake, which
Okay.
like has some really cool set pieces. Like there's this thing where he has to kill this dude who like swims in this fancy glass bottom swimming pool like on top of a skyscraper like that hangs over the edge so he can like look down on the city while he's doing laps or whatever. And so Statham has to like get up there and puts like these explosive charges in there, so basically like he blows up the bottom of the pool and the guy falls out of the bottom of the pool and splats on the pavement. And it's like that's super rad, right? But there's a bunch of really silly bullshit all around that in that movie where like the whole thing is like he's out and he's not going to be an assassin anymore because like he's a good dude now and he just wants to like live on the beach with his girlfriend Jessica Alba, but like oh no, this bad guy needs the best assassin that ever was. And so he kidnaps Jessica Alba and then makes Jason Statham do more hits for him, or he's going to kill his girlfriend. And it's like, I didn't need any of that shit. It takes like a third of the movie to set all that up, and I super don't care. And I would rather just be like, call him up. He's the mechanic. He does this. He does the impossible. He's Golgo 13. He does the impossible hits, and then like spend the movie showing me these cool fucking Rube Goldberg, like hits where he has to like, whatever. But like, I didn't need to.
Where he's got a hit.
Yeah, but I didn't need like 25 minutes of setup with Jessica Alba to be invested in him doing cool hits. Like, that's just cool. I just want to see him do cool hits. And that's what I think is cool about Golgo 13 is it's just like, he's sort of this like force of nature, right? People call him, like, one of the stories I read, I was telling Ethan before we started recording, one of the stories I read, he's not even in it for he doesn't show up until like chapter 5 of 8. And then he shows up, and then he's tasked with doing a thing, and then he doesn't do the thing because the guy betrays him. And so then it's like, well, now I got to kill you because you fucked me over. And so like, then it turns into like, how's he going to get this guy, and what's he going to do to him? And so I think, I don't know. I just think there are so few stories, and the way, I guess a lot of American media specifically, there always has to be like, I mean, we were just talking about John Wick, right? And I like those movies a lot, but it can't just be a movie about, if he's like truly heartless, then like the audience doesn't feel like they have something to identify with.
Yeah.
But for me, the pleasure in Golgo 13 is just that like he fucking pulls off these sick hits, and figuring out how he's going to do it is the cool part and the attractive part of the story. Not necessarily that Duke Togo is a super interesting character, because like you said, he's really not. There's
nothing.
He says almost nothing. We don't know anything about his history. All we know is that if you pay him his rate, he will kill whoever you ask him to.
The thing that cracks me up about that is that he's constantly fucking.
Yes.
He's constantly having sex.
Yes.
But he doesn't seem to enjoy it or even do anything. He kind of just gets nude and just sits there.
So in the anime, there's very like his #1 move is lying flat on his back with a blank expression on his face while some chick rides him to this like ridiculous orgasm, right? But in the live action movie, I don't know about the first one, Ethan, you can chime in on that, but in the Sonny Chiba live action, he definitely is a more active participant in the sex.
Well, yeah,
and in the comic, like one of the comics that I have, there's a scene where he like someone tries to fuck him over, and so he has to like duck into a house, and he's like, there's a single woman who lives there, and he's like, I'm just here to like, here's $1,000. I just need to use your phone. I won't bother you. I'm not going to hurt you. And then when he tries to leave, she's like, no, I'm so lonely. Don't leave, Duke. And like, then they bone, and he's definitely like, the art in that scene is like, he's much more of a participant than in the anime where he just is like light as a feather, stiff as a board, like laying down on his back with a blank expression on his face.
Well, then maybe he does have some sort of emotion then, after all. Or maybe
what I'm getting from all this is that he's really like much more of a character and maybe just an active participant in his life and this plot in general. In the second movie, which I watched, but of course the manga and the animated movies. Joe, you have not seen the 1973 movie?
I didn't watch the 1973 movie.
Okay.
But
I
read like a plot synopsis, basically.
Yeah, so when you go on Wikipedia, and I did this before I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, I guess this is just kind of like no one really wrote this article, because the plot synopsis is only one single line of text that says, contracted by an organization to kill Max Boa, the head of a worldwide crime syndicate responsible for drugs, weapon, and human trafficking, Golgo 13, real name Duke Togo, is sent to the Middle East to track down his target and eliminate them.
That is not his real name, Wikipedia. That is not his real name.
Fucker.
That is also an alias. His real name is unknown.
Yeah, sure. But, so I was thinking, that's one sentence. That cannot be the whole synopsis. And it turns out it is. Turns out nobody tries to double cross him in this movie, really. nobody really. Basically, here's what happens in this movie. We see that there's some bad guys, and they're doing some bad guy stuff. They kill a cop, I think. I don't even really remember. Then we see or no, I don't remember if it's the cops. It's another syndicate, whatever. These people say like, "Oh, we gotta avenge our friend's death or whatever," and this, "Oh, but we can't because we don't have jurisdiction in this area. We'll get Duke Togo. We'll get Golgo 13," and then you see this truly incredible, like it just slam cut to I think what must be an image that's kind of like taken from the manga, where you see like his face straight on and in profile in black and white, like it's some kind of like file on him or something, with like these kind of filing codes on the bottom with the title superimposed over it. Just slam to that, and the titles, like the actual title text, I think it like slides in two panels from the left and right, and you get this huge horn stab. And it's amazing, and definitely the best part of the movie. And then I thought what's interesting about it is, like, I think since I knew that the second movie was going to be a Sonny Chiba movie, I was kind of expecting that this would be kind of like a Sonny Chiba movie in some way, like that it would be that it would have like some karate, and that it would basically be an action movie. And this like kind of is an action movie, but the first half of the movie is incredibly slow and moody, and like he really like says almost nothing, reveals almost none of his motivation, except he's
money
trying to,
and pussy is
he's trying to do the contract.
motivation.
So his only sex scene in the first movie is I guess it's like a cop who contracts him to go do this killing, or maybe it's like some country's intelligence service or something. Sends a woman along with him. It's because he's going to Tehran in the movie, which that's a really cool part of the movie, is that they like almost the entire movie is shot in Iran.
It was filmed in pre-revolution Iran.
And I'm just so not used to seeing movies there. It's just like,
and apparently
it's
she
cool
was
to
like
see.
a famous Iranian actress too. Like she was like pre-revolution, her career apparently, because there was like part of the reason that I got the collection of manga that I did is because it has a bit in the back about the live action movies, which I thought would actually be more informative than it was. But it did talk about how she was like a very famous actress and like sort of sex symbol pre-revolution, but when the revolution happened, like her career was over, obviously. But
so the only real Rube Goldberg thing he does in the whole movie is his initial appearance. He like pulls this trick on these cops, or I don't know, I forget what country they're supposed to be from, but they're essentially like FBI agents or whatever is the Japanese FBI. And he pulls a trick on them where he orders room service to bring water up to the room, this hotel room that they're conferring in. And then after the woman gets to the door with this water that they didn't order, he has the front desk call them and hassle them about something else. Okay. And then they're like, "Where is this guy? He's late." And he just appears in the room, and one of the guys is like, "You snuck in behind the water lady while we were distracted with the phone call." Just like tells us what happened.
That doesn't sound all that interesting for Golgo.
No, it's like not really
honest.
that slick. It's like maybe anyone really could do that if you were just a little clever. But
right.
They tell him he's got to kill this crime boss who's named
Boa, right?
Max Boa, amazing name. In Iran,
he also has an amazing penis at any rate, apparently, because he has a Max Boa.
Yeah. So we don't really. So the only thing we see of his sexuality is in the scene after that. He's like sleeping for a night before it's time to take this plane, I guess, to Iran, and a woman, who is this. It looks like her name is Motion Sorabi, maybe. I can't tell. No, that's somebody else.
No,
It's good that there's only like 3 people listening to this because Mosen is probably a man's name. I don't know who it is. Anyway, so this woman who was in this conference room follows him into this hotel room and tells him that, like, by the order of this guy who's employing him, they're supposed to basically pretend that they're
Puri Benai, I think is her name.
Okay. Oh, and it says that her character is Catherine Morton, which doesn't seem that doesn't make sense. She tells him that they're to pretend to be husband and wife so that they can blend in a little bit better. So it's like there's a reason why, you know, this trench coat wearing Japanese man is in Iran, and it's not suspicious because he's married to an Iranian woman. And you could tell that he's not enthused by this idea. She tells him that I think something like, "You must love me or something bad will happen." And he looks like unenthused, but he's like, okay, takes his shirt off, lies in bed, and starts to kiss her. And then we cut to after they have had sex, she's waking up and he's not in the room anymore. Like he has used his powers to put her to sleep so that he can escape the country.
So, just like Ice Cube, so deep, put her ass to sleep.
Yeah, and then he gets to Iran, and there is really very little narrative tension through the rest of the movie. I mean, there's things that happen, and, you know, like he spoiler alert, there's a sequence where this woman who is there, she does eventually make it there. One of the bad guys, like a mini boss basically, is executing people, like executing these hostages, like counting down and then shooting one of them. And they like draw out this extended tense sequence where they're like, "I'm gonna kill her next," and he puts the gun to her, and he just counts down and kills her, and he doesn't care about that because that guy's not his target, and that woman's not his target, and he knows that he can get closer to his target if he bides his time. And like I mean. Instead of feeling like, you know, like a karate movie, like a Hong Kong action movie or like a Sonny Chiba movie, it felt more like I don't know, like kind of like a slower like giallo movie, or like a Get Carter, like grimy, slow. The main
like
character,
the good Get Carter is
you mean? The good Get Carter. Okay. Like it's a grimy movie. It's a slow movie. Very little happens. But the main character is just like seething through the entire movie and is a complete piece of shit. But like there's something compelling about, like he doesn't have like the swagger of Michael Caine and Get Carter.
Nobody has the swag of Michael Caine and Get Carter.
But he is like so stoic in this movie. It's like it takes that archetype to an absolute extreme, to the point that when I then started the Sonny Chiba movie, I was like, this is not, like, I don't like this. Like, this he's got way too many facial expressions. He's saying too many words.
And by the Sonny Chiba standard, he actually uses vanishingly few facial expressions by his own standard.
Yeah, but he seems like there is life behind his eyes in that movie, maybe. Whereas, like, in the 1973 movie, he's just, like, completely... Like, there is I mean, I think a lot of the translation is probably not very well done, but a woman asks him in the movie, like, what are women to you? Just oil for are they just oil for the killing machine? Which is, you know, it's like, yep, that's the character.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean, I still think the Chiba one is pretty faithful to the character too. I mean, you're right. He's a little more emotive than the Duke of the comic, and
more vulnerable too. Like,
well, he's in the anime. He gets like good and fucked up and has to like go recover for a while at one point, and by the end, like we'll get to the anime in a minute, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of the criticisms I've seen of this, like I looked at some of the, like what people don't like or whatever, and the one that comes up because everybody has to assign some fucking thing they read on TV tropes to like everything they watch now is like he's a Mary Sue, and that's like, well, I mean, kind of like he's definitely a sort of prototypical male power fantasy in the mold of James Bond, but also like there are stories where he gets tricked or he gets hurt or he gets betrayed and he doesn't like catch it in time, and he doesn't like in the anime he gets pretty fucked up in some of the moments in the anime. Like he gets shot in the chest and then has to like go back to his like base of operations in Miami and just like heal up for a while. And then like in the like last run up to finding the guy who's trying to kill him in the anime, he gets like pretty fucked up fighting a bunch of other assassins and soldiers and shit. Like he's not bulletproof, but I mean, he definitely is. I mean, he's more. He is a more amoral James Bond. So it's like, sometimes James Bond gets shot and sometimes he has to like have someone help him patch him up and sleep it off or whatever, but like he's going to win at the end, It's very similar, I think. But, like Alex said, without any of the camp elements really of James Bond. So
yeah, and like even compared to the second movie, which is like there's not a lot of he's not like a dashing James Bond type character in that movie,
right?
But like compared to the first movie, he is. In the first movie, he's like no one would want to spend a second with this guy. Like this guy is just a horrible person and is just like death incarnate unless you're not on his list, and then he doesn't care about you and will just let you die. But I think that maybe like the only specifics that are worth bringing up is in terms of action scenes, there was like a nice suspenseful scene where there's like kind of a henchman character who's blind, and Golgo 13 is in a completely darkened room, basically having like a standoff with this guy who's using sound to shoot at him, and Golgo 13 kills him by like not doing any Rube Goldberg shit. He just kind of makes his way over to a corner of the room where there's a refrigerator and flings the fridge door open and immediately shoots the guy from the ray of light that emits from like the light bulb in the fridge, which I thought was a good scene. Like nasty basic scene. There is a very long car chase in the middle of the desert, I think between like Tehran and Isfahan. I don't know anything about the geography of Iran, but it's like just like this extremely bleak desert landscape where three like late 60s early 70s cars are ramming each other repeatedly and rolling up and down the dunes. I thought like the second half of the movie is where the action ratchets up, but it's like a lot of that kind of like car chases shot in a very dated way, like I mean, this would be post like the French Connection, but it feels like it was almost before that, because it's like shot in a very non-kinetic feeling way. And then in the very end of the movie, he of course does. The movie very briefly becomes like a spaghetti western. He's like trudging through the desert, and it seems like he's been walking through the desert for days. Maybe it looks like he's near death, and he's somehow picked up these robes to shield himself from the sun, whatever. And he makes his way finally to Max Boa, and just picks up his gun, gets him in his sights, and kills him. And that's the end of the movie. Except Max Boa. Since Max Boa is like obviously from his name, he's basically a Bond villain. He's got like a tropical bird with him through the entire movie, who's like always on his shoulder, and this was like a bird that was trained to be in his face at all times. And Golgo 13, for some reason, after he's killed Max Boa, then blows the bird away, and we see a shot of a bird getting sniped, and then the movie is over.
No witnesses.
Yeah, okay, no witnesses. No,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Right. Well, I'd heard that the Chiba one was the worst of the two. But it was Sonny Chiba, so that was the one I wanted to watch. What it sounds like you kind of liked the first one, but
I would not watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it the first time. There's definitely interesting things in the first 2/3. Um, yeah, some of the images of Max Boa and his bird really are incredible. And yeah, I mean, it's a really bleak movie, and I mean, Get Carter is one of my very favorite movies, so I'm a sucker for that kind of
I
thing.
mean, yeah, I waited way too long in life to see Get Carter, the original Get Carter, even after like as a teenager, late teens, I guess it would have been, right? Anyway, I saw the Stallone one and like kind of liked it at the time. And I remember my dad being like, "Oh yeah, Michael Caine's in this. He's in the original Get Carter." And then I never sought it out until I was like in my 30s. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, "This movie fucking rules. Why didn't I see this earlier?" It really makes me want to. The one that I don't. It doesn't seem to be like available in the U.S. officially in any way. But like I want to watch the Long Good Friday, which is like another British like gangster crime film with Bob Hoskins that is like very well regarded.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the Chiba one was what 5 years later, 78.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so this is post what Street Fighter and Street Fighter's Revenge.
Turbo. All of the rest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it is. Those all came out in '74, I think. It was.
Oh, that's right. All three of them came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So this is after he's sort of made his big name as the Street Fighter. Like you said, he has a little bit too much in terms of facial expressions. My big complaint, and like I was saying, there are some comic stories where he is not heavily featured in the comic story, but I think when you're going out of your way to make a theatrical film, I think you maybe want him to be in it a little more. And I feel like the Sonny Chiba movie, it kind of splits time between Duke and the detective who's trying to stop him and failing at every turn to stop him. And I just didn't think the detective was that interesting of a character either. Like I thought Duke is more interesting to me than the detective, because the detective is just like, oh well, even though like this guy's a scumbag crime lord, like like cartel leader, like we can't let this guy kill him. And I'm like, okay. And it follows a similar thing to some of the, like I was saying, some of the stories where, so the first person that he is asked to kill is, so there's a guy in America who is partners with this drug kingpin in Hong Kong, and so, sorry, the second one is called Golgo 13 Assignment Kowloon, and so a lot of it is in Hong Kong, and he's killing this guy he's sort of positioned himself as a prominent member of the community in Hong Kong, but he's really like a drug trafficker. And the American side of the operation thinks he's getting a little too big for his britches, and so they hire Duke to go to Hong Kong and kill him. But someone poaches the kill away from him at the last moment, which of course is unacceptable. And so then he has to sort of figure out what happened and find who is trying to fuck him over. And it turns out that the ambassador to some country that I'm not even sure is real, I don't remember what country the guy is supposed to be the ambassador to, but he's the one, because he's the actual drug supplier. He's the real, top of the food chain. And so his scheme was to kill this guy, take over the operation completely, and then turn himself over as like with diplomatic immunity as basically like a federal witness to the FBI. And so by the end, it is a race between the cops who are trying to get him and get a statement from him and like extradite him to the U.S. and Golgo, who is trying to kill him because he fucked him over, and that this aggression will not stand, man. Um, and I mean, I watched this one last weekend, so my memory is not as fresh as the anime, which I watched last night. But it was fine. It does that thing that 70s exploitation movies sometimes do, where they can be ponderous and not in a good way. Like they just didn't have the budget to do more action, so they just kind of pad out the runtime with a lot of talking that isn't especially interesting or good. Um, but I do think that Chiba is a pretty good, you know, I think the thing that continuously kind of surprises me is that this is a property that has not been more adapted.
Yeah, I feel that.
Apparently, there's an anime.
Especially because it's just been out for so long.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten what, like the James Bond movie that just came out was the 26th one. Is that right? Something like that.
I guess something like that.
Um, and we have two unrelated live action movies and two unrelated anime movies. Though one theatrical anime and one OVA, but they were both directed by the same guy, 15 years apart. And then there was like what, a 2-season anime series in like the late 2000s that it sounds like nobody liked.
Episode thing. I don't know. I didn't. Yeah.
I haven't watched any of it, but it sounds like it was like pretty cheaply made and nobody really liked it very much. So I don't know. But the second live action movie, I don't know. I'll probably never watch it again. I thought it was fine. But and it does a lot of the stuff. Like he shoots people straight in the middle of the forehead. There's a scene where a bunch of guys try to fight him, like on the street, and he like shoots a couple of them just like dead center in the forehead with a revolver, like because that's his thing. He never misses. He's got perfect aim or whatever. So. And there's some scenes of him that like very easily comparable to the anime, and a lot of panels in the comic where he's assembling his custom M16 sniper rifle, screwing the barrel extension and the silencer onto the end of it, and looking through the scope, and like, I mean, you can see the image that I have up for this is like basically they took a shot that is sort of exactly one of the sort of stock images of Golgo 13 and did it in live action of him lining up a shot through the rifle. And all that stuff is good. It's not an especially good or memorable movie. It's a 7. If you need a Chiba fix, watch Street Fighter, Return of Street Fighter, Street Fighter's Last Revenge. That's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would say if you want to watch a Golgo 13 movie, watch the first one and imagine that the actor in the first one has the sideburns and incredible hairline of Sonny Chiba, which
yes,
really that was the most impressive thing about the second movie to me, is that I did not know much about Golgo 13 at all, and I swore watching that movie that like the character that I had seen drawn was based on that Sonny Chiba look. Like it's uncanny.
The very distinctive hairline, right? Especially for an anime character, like, because so many anime characters have wild, spiky or feathered, hair, and like he has this like, very conservative, sort of slicked down hairstyle. And yeah, Chiba has they whoever did the hair and makeup on the Chiba movie like perfectly did the Golgo hairline on Sonny Chiba, which is great. So the anime was directed by Osamu Dezaki, who is a co-founder of the Madhouse studio, which is sort of like now is one of the kind of big swinging dicks in anime, right? They did Death Note, right? And they did
I mean, they've done a ton of Madhouse has done an insane amount of
yeah,
stuff.
they did those Marvel animes that were on like Sci-Fi Channel, like right after the MCU started. That were like there was like a anime Wolverine and an anime Iron Man, except like they were like made in Japan, but they were made for a U.S. audience, from what I could tell. They did those, which are like they're super
Well,
stylish.
what they do that was recent? They did like Hunter x Hunter. They
That's right.
did
Yeah.
like I just had one and I lost. Oh, they did the first season of One Punch Man, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yes. Which is great.
Yeah, and it's like that's so. But then they've been around forever. They did fucking like Perfect Blue, Vampire Hunter D, and like like
Vampire Hunter
and
D
then Death
2, right?
Note.
The second Vampire Hunter D.
I think it's the second one. Yeah, I don't
Bloodlust.
know.
That
I
movie.
never really liked Vampire Hunter D.
Oh,
I
you're
don't know,
you're
but
super wrong. Those movies are awesome. The second one is better
I
than the
mean,
first one.
I'm not like gonna fight you on it. I'm just like I don't know. I watched the first one. And I was like, yeah, all right, like that's fine, But anyway, um, yeah, they've just been around forever, and they've been like consistently around. Like they're just one of the big, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. So he co-founded them, and he did he's done a whole bunch of stuff. He did 4 Hamtaro movies. He did he did the Blackjack movie. He did a bunch of Lupin the Third TV anime movies. Um, he was the animation director
The
of
older Lupin the Third.
yeah, 89, 90, 91, 92, 95 were the 5 Lupin the Third movies he did.
Oh, interesting.
He was the animation director on, believe it or not, Frosty the Snowman. Because Rankin Bass partnered with Japanese studios to make those old Christmas specials they did. So he was the animation
fuck,
director
I
on
gotta watch
Frosty.
Lupin Part 6. I totally forgot. It's been on. It's probably like done.
Yeah, that's like recent though, right? That's like
I
a
mean, that
recent
was like
thing.
last. I just like
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
forgot. I'm like, oh my god, there's a new Lupin and I haven't watched it. Anyway, never mind.
But yeah, he did a
Sorry.
bunch of stuff. He worked on Astro Boy. He worked on the Lupin
Suffice
TV
to say,
series in the
dude's been around
70s.
the
He's
block.
been around the block. And I think I don't know. I've seen some people say that like they didn't think this movie was, whatever, but for me, and again, this kind of goes back to what Ethan and I were saying when we were talking about Batman and stuff, but like 80s anime has a very distinct look, and there is something. I mean, I like One Punch Man. I liked Death Note when I watched it. I liked a lot of the original run of Naruto, and stuff. And
Yo,
dude, you watch Dragon Ball? Do not you people in
Dragon
glass
Ball's way
houses?
better than Naruto.
Um,
Don't fight me on this.
but something about hand drawn animation just has a different
Rules.
feel to it. Yes, rules, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Eh.
this,
I don't even think the animation in this movie is is good. I don't think it's good. Sorry, I feel like I said that in a weird way, but
I
I
mean,
think there's like
it's not Akira, or I think it's like on
no,
par
it's
with the that Fist of the North Star movie we talked about last year.
no, I think that movie's way better looking.
Think
That's
so?
crazy to me. Yeah,
I don't think
absolutely.
that movie is particularly good looking, honestly.
I mean, I think it's better than this because this is one of those things where it's like I feel like there's like frames missing at times, and then but I
Yeah,
think the thing is, it seems like it's just it's an older movie and it's smaller budget. That's all it
it
is.
is, but it
Uh,
still feels very stylish.
well, hang on. I was gonna
Yeah.
say is what they do is they make smart when what they I feel like don't do as much anymore is now when there's like no budget they just go well all right this just won't look that good and it's like they like frames just aren't as detailed and stuff. Whereas what they would do here is they do the thing where it's like they would choose how they cut things more like judiciously to
Mhm.
make it have more of an impact. Like they would do the thing where they would rather than have it be animated, they would do like scene of like a series of stills that were like very heavily detailed. And so it's like it conveys it's like almost like reading the manga where it's like that it's like a style choice. It's like
Mhm.
you're seeing like that like this reaction shot, this one and this one.
Well, they do
Like
that,
and
and they do
then
those really stylish, like the more detailed freeze frames, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like there's a character who's wearing like a jockey outfit who he kills on the beach
mhm.
and then like the wave washes over her, and they do this cool like almost like watercolor kind of looking thing with the water like over her clothes, and it's like that looked fucking sick. Like, you know, like, and there's all sorts of things like that. The guy who shoots himself in the head, and they do like the still frame, and but the smoke cloud is like coming out of his head.
Yeah, the priest or whatever, or the bishop.
Like all that stuff is cool, and that's stuff that they used to do in 80s anime that like you don't. I mean, you know, obviously there's always exceptions, but like for a lot of those like mainstream like big budget kind of stuff, like yeah, they don't always do that. It's just everything's very like clean and nice, and then with this episode we don't have, you know, the fucking budget, so you just look in the background, you're like, that guy has like no details at all. Like I watched the new season of JoJo, which I love JoJo to death, and it's great. But it's just like there's a lot of scenes where there's literally they're walking through the prison and just they don't even have background. The whole thing's set in a prison. Sorry, important information. They're in the like, and then in the background, they're literally just silhouettes of characters. It's not even people. Like it's like I would rather you just draw like two people who actually look like people rather than just have literally like white and gray like shaded cutouts that just are the background. And it's like, but that's what they do now sometimes, and it's like, you know, whatever. Whereas in the 80s they fucking underpaid and made and overworked like a million people to make it look good.
I mean, they still do that. They just don't get as good a results.
They still do that. They just, exactly. It's just same shit, different day. Like it's just redone. Done differently.
But I mean, I really enjoyed this movie because I think it's like you said, it's sort of joyless fun. Like he's a dour man. But he like it moves really quickly, like right, it starts with an assassination to sort of set the tone. So before this
it kind of moves almost like it's like at some point like he's like on the run from the CIA, the army, and the FBI.
Yes.
And then in the middle of that, at one point he just like picks up another job, and I was like, what is he doing right now? And it's like, oh, he's fucking like working. Like
it sure is
like, what the hell, man? This dude needs to take a vacation. Like
he's a workaholic, man. He's you know what they say.
He really is.
Do what you love, and you'll never work another day in your life.
Yeah, well, he seems to love being betrayed by people who are in one scene and then a scene again where they betray him.
Yeah. Well, so he kills someone right away, and then that's like there's no consequence to that. It's just like to show off what a badass he is. And then we get a very, very James Bond style opening credit scene where there's like a skull with blood dripping down it and shell casings falling stylishly while this woman is singing about what I can't remember what she's singing about.
I don't remember, but the skeleton does bite a bullet and then explode at one point, which I fucking loved.
Yes, absolutely. So we get a bunch of that, which is great, and then he immediately kills somebody else. He's driving up the northern coast of California, and he goes to this lighthouse basically, and from the lighthouse he snipes this dude on the deck of like a yacht out in the bay. And that's sort of the inciting incident for everything, but he doesn't know it yet. He just did the job that he was paid to do. So then he goes and gets a job in Italy from a bishop who his family was a crime family, but he was trying to turn away from crime to, you know, a life of servitude with God, and that's why he's a bishop. But this other crime family led by the mysterious Dr. Zed killed his whole family basically. So he transfers the money to Golgo's Swiss bank account or whatever, and then he immediately kills himself because he feels like he's betrayed God by taking violent revenge on the family that killed his family. Which is interesting because as a lapsed Catholic, I can tell you, if you're a Catholic and you commit suicide, the belief is that you will be stuck in purgatory.
You go to hell.
Oh, no, purgatory for suicide. Yeah.
I thought it was hell. All right. Well.
So, but I guess maybe he's counting on someone to buy. What do they call those? You can't actually buy them anymore. But,
Apple Watches.
Yeah, buy an Apple Watch. No. Oh Jesus. I can't remember what they're called. You used to be able to buy basically the Catholic Church used to run this racket where you could pay them.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called either.
Your relatives in heaven. They'd be like, okay, well, you gave the church money, so we're gonna talk to Jesus, and he's gonna let your relative who's stuck in purgatory go to heaven now. So it's all good. Indulgences. You buy you pay for an indulgence.
I literally searched for Catholic Church and then buy, and then your way to heaven auto populated, and then indulgence. This is the first thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Google still works sometimes.
That's right. So I don't know. Maybe the bishop's counting on his one of his friars to pay for some indulgences and get him into heaven.
I don't
but either
think
way,
we're supposed to think about
no,
it.
we're not. We're
all.
absolutely not supposed to think about it at all. But he goes to Sicily to find Dr. Z, and his lead, one of his informants, gives him a lead that his daughter is basically like a regular fuck machine, but she usually kills her partners. They hold off on calling her Black Widow or something like that, which is an impressive amount of restraint, frankly.
For this, yeah.
So of course, like, you know, he's Golgo 13, so he's going to tap that because, as I said earlier, the only things that motivate him are money and pussy. So even though, like you said, Alex, it doesn't really seem like he's enjoying it all that much in the anime.
Yeah.
But he bones down with her, and basically he very quickly figures out that she's not Dr. Z's daughter. She is Dr. Z. There is no Dr. Z. She, you know, and so that's, like Alex said, she's riding a horse on the beach, and he puts one in her brain, and there's a really great sort of freeze frame of her in front of the ocean, the waves coming up, and blood just like spurting out of her forehead.
Then they shoot up his car, but he's just fine.
But he's
like, they literally like eviscerate his car with a machine gun, and he's just like, whatever.
Yeah, well, he's like swims away.
Yeah.
And so now we start to see that he goes to tell the bishop's buddy that the job is done, basically, and when he gets there, the guy's been crucified in the church. And this is the thing that I find interesting. Obviously, like I said, I haven't read all of the Golgo 13 stories that are in the comics. That would be impossible. But, like, there's a little bit of anime bullshit in this movie that is not present in any of the comics I read, which is like, there's 3 guys, special operatives with signature weapons who, like, show up at this church and try to kill Golgo 13. And it turns out that they are part of their army special forces guys. One of them uses a hook hand, because that's standard issue army, you know, stuff for special forces, is having a hook hand. And they actually do fuck him up pretty badly, but he escapes the church before they blow it up, and manages to live to see another day. He heads to America. And it turns out that the guy he killed at the beginning, not the very first one, but the guy he shot on the boat, was the son of an extremely wealthy oil baron who has now managed to somehow pay off the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, and a army general at the Pentagon.
Well, and hang on. Also, this guy, they just sort of casually drop later in the movie, this guy decided that John F. Kennedy should die.
Yes.
And did the same thing, and that's why John F. Kennedy is dead, because some oil baron was like, we need to kill him.
Yeah. It's like super casual.
Powerful.
Like, it's not dwelled upon at all. They're just like
very incidental detail.
They show like one freeze frame of JFK waving from the car, like a drawing of him waving from the car, and then they say like, we helped you out in Dallas, you know.
Yeah. And that's it.
And that's it. Like,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, well, never mind. We'll get there. But
so now this guy is going to kill Golgo 13, and nothing is going to stop him. And I think part of what makes this movie work is that they make the villain of the piece more reprehensible than Golgo 13, right? So like, Golgo 13 is this amoral, you know, he'll kill anybody for the right price. If you pay his fee, he will kill whoever you need killed. But he doesn't just like, he's not like a bloodthirsty monster. He doesn't just like, you know, there's usually, if a hit goes smoothly, there's no collateral damage.
Would you say that actually Golgo 13 is the professional?
Yes, I would say that he is the professional. But Leon is also the professional.
Leon is also. Hey, guess what Leon is?
The
A
professional.
hitman.
Yeah, the hitman. That's a movie. We haven't done that movie.
I mean, that's not really an action movie. But
Really? We
yeah,
haven't?
No,
I guess
we've
at
never
this
talked
point
about
that
that
doesn't
movie.
matter.
I mean, at the end,
Biggest
there's a
one is
big
good.
action set piece at the end of that movie for sure.
Yeah, but does one action scene make an action movie?
No, I guess not. But anyways,
whatever.
Yeah, I think the only one of his movies that we've done is Fifth Element. I don't think we've done any of his other movies. Luc Besson, but so he, so the general, or not the general, the oil baron is very willing to do like whatever. So he is not happy with the three army guys. Special hook hand guy is not satisfactory to him. So he gets this ridiculous anime villain on his side called Big Snake.
Yeah.
The third son of Big Boss.
Right.
The fourth son of Big Boss, Big Snake. Who is this
the son of Max Boa.
That's right, yeah. He's this gross, toothless dude who fights with knives and like garrots, but not like a normal. He doesn't do a garrote like you normally would, where you just like wrap it around a guy's neck and kill him. He like cuts people with wires, basically, because anime.
It's anime, yeah.
And he's also like a sex pest in like a pretty fucking major way. The guy who Golgo shot on the boat, his widow is around, and Big Snake at first just like molests her straight up, and like nobody stops him really. And then later in the movie, the oil baron just like locks her in a room with him and lets him rape her repeatedly. Yeah. So at that point, you're just like, well, I want Golgo to kill the fucking Big Snake, has got to go, and the fucking oil baron's got to go, and the fucking butler, who was the one who actually locked the door, he's got to fucking go. Like, you're in for Golgo to do all these motherfuckers in. But he goes to America, and he has like, he's contacts kind of all over the place. Oh, because his contact in Sicily gets killed by Big Snake. And there's this ridiculous sequence of him dead, spinning around in a chair with blood spurting out of his neck and a bunch of clocks in montage in the background.
Yeah.
So when Golgo goes to America, what's her name again? His
Rita.
Rita, yeah.
So, it says on Wikipedia. I don't remember.
So,
nobody has a name in this movie.
Yeah,
they're just like
except for Golgo 13. He's the only, and even he doesn't have a name. We don't know his real name. Name unknown, age unknown, nationality unknown. Although it is repeated in all of the things that I've seen, it is repeated that he is Asian of some stripe, but they never commit to. He's Japanese, he's Chinese, he's Korean, he's just Asian of some stripe.
Yeah.
But he so one of my favorite lines in the movie. So Rita hooks him up with a slick ass car. It's a Ford Laser, which actually those were not available in the United States apparently, but there is actually a Ford Laser Ford did make a car called the Laser that looked like that in Asia. And it's turbocharged, so he can get away from anybody. And then because he does take another job while he's being hunted by the oil baron, he needs a special rifle. This is in San Francisco, and he's gonna because he has to shoot. The guy never leaves his penthouse apartment, which has 50 millimeter thick bulletproof glass. So he needs a special rifle that will shoot through there. And when he offers to pay Rita, she says, "I don't want your money this time, but just this one time, Duke, will you pull my trigger?"
Yeah, that's like probably the best line in the movie by like a wide margin.
Yeah, and so he does. And she loves it, of course, because he has an amazing penis.
It was really like sad where she just like, he gives her money because he's like, hey, you helped me, so like they're gonna come for you, and then she's like, oh, you do care about me, and he's like, I just need you not to die because you make like good guns, and then she's like, you could tell she like oh, but that's not why. It's like, no,
Right, right.
that literally
That
is
probably
why.
is literally why.
Lady.
But then she doesn't
Yeah.
listen to him. He's like, take this money, because he tries to pay. He pays her, and she's like, I'm not that kind of girl. And he's like, no, I can't not pay you for your like awesome ass gun and your awesome ass car. Also, get the fuck out of town because these people are going to be looking for you. And then she doesn't leave, and she gets fucking killed. That's another thing. Like this, so. This movie is not nice to women at all. If that's not clear by now.
Yeah, I didn't. I would have interrupted you like 3 times already. I was like, I figured we could just sum that all up at the end.
Every woman gets fridged in some capacity in this movie. Usually they just get killed.
Yeah. I was gonna say no. That one just gets raped a bunch of times and then becomes a prostitute.
Yes,
and
yes, that one does.
tries to kill Golgo 13.
Right, which is weird. The end, the very last minute of this film is kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree. Which is basically that is the last minute. It's a very weird sequence. But anyway.
But every woman in this movie gets fridged. None of them are treated well. It's a hella misogynistic movie. But as I have said before, as I will continue to shout from the fucking rooftops because it gets tiresome after a while. You do not, and I think Ethan will very, very strongly agree with me here. One does not need to agree with the socio-political subtext of a film to enjoy the film.
In fact, sometimes when you disagree with it the most, it makes it the most funny.
Yeah, that's true. Accurate. I just remember your speech about in Rambo 4 how the bad guy is a boy fucker, and you're like your whole thing about because it's not enough for him to be a child rapist for Stallone. In Stallone's mind, the worst thing you can be is a boy fucker.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like, because that's worse than if he was, if the bad guy was. It's one thing to rape little girls, but it's even worse to be a boy.
I mean, if it's a girl, I can't understand.
Jesus.
I'm not gonna put that on Sly Stallone. I'm not gonna. But point is, you don't. I mean, I don't think we'd be able to do this show if we felt like we had to be all in on the subtext of a movie, every movie we watched, in order to watch it and enjoy it and talk about it. But this movie does not treat women well, and there is. I mean, I've definitely sat through way, way, way worse sexual assault sequences in films, like way worse. But there is like a not insignificant sequence of sexual assault in this movie. So FYI on that, if that's the thing that bothers you, don't watch this movie. But
like decency or like taste or bothersome to you.
Well, that's a different problem. I don't know that I would say most of the movies we watch don't have any of that. So
yeah, fair enough.
But there's like a car chase. The army's after him. Well, I'm sorry. No, first he kills the guy. We kind of touched on this before. It turns out that the army is trying to get him. The army and the CIA and the FBI are trying to get him. Then they know he's going to pull off this hit. And they isolate 3 places where he could take the shot from. One of them is I don't remember what they refer to it as, but it's basically the pyramid in San Francisco, that weird fucking triangle-shaped building.
I don't even know what you're...
The Prudential building or whatever.
Oh no, dude! I hate San Francisco. I try to go there as little as possible. I don't actually hate San Francisco. I hate driving in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's the thing that I thought was funny is like Transamerica Pyramid, but they call it something else, which maybe it used to be called something else. I don't know. But one of those is one of the places, and then there's like 2 other buildings, and then they're like, oh, there's also this billboard, this big like advertisement on another building, but it's behind one of these buildings. Therefore, he couldn't make the shot, so like don't worry about staking out that spot. Like just watch the other 3. Well, then it turns out, of course, that he is going to take the shot from that billboard, and the way he's going to do it is he's going to shoot, like I said earlier, through one window, out the other window, and then into the guy's penthouse. And the guy is like having an orgy at the time. This movie is horny as hell.
By the way, he's an ex-Nazi. We glossed over that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. He's like a yeah.
Which I feel like is a weird. Well, it's not a weird detail, but it's like a.
There's actually a lot of that. So in the NES game, which like I don't think we have time to really talk about how weird it is that a fucking US release of an NES, two NES games. There are two US released NES games based on Golgo 13.
That's why I'm bummed that Eric isn't here, because I was hoping that I would get to see some footage.
He would be playing them. Yeah. And so yeah, there are two of those, and in the first one, you have to snipe Hitler's brain. It's like Hitler's brain is in a jar at the end, and you have to snipe Hitler's brain. And apparently, in the very first Golgo 13 comic from 1968, he is contracted to hunt down a former Nazi who's living in this compound in like Argentina. And it's impossible to like get in. He never leaves the compound. Like,
it's not even that. It's like it makes sense to me that somebody would hire Golgo 13 to kill a Nazi. That makes sense. What's weird about it is that in the movie, they try to like all the people that he ends up killing. They like it makes sense from like why you would want to get. I'm not explaining this well, but it's like they're people who you want.
They're all pieces of shit.
Yeah, they're all pieces of shit. Whereas I think like the whole thing about Golgo 13 is like whoever he's trying to kill, it's like it's just because they gave him money and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, right?
But it's the same thing with like the Hitman games, right? Like 47 is like this emotionless. Like he's basically Golgo 13 but bald. The game that those games always like everyone you kill is some like super rich piece of shit who you're not going to feel bad controlling 47 to fucking push them off a balcony because they're pieces of shit. So, it's the same idea, basically. There probably are Golgo 13 stories where he kills someone who isn't a piece of shit and you kind of like don't like it, but definitely the ones that in one of the ones that I read tonight, he doesn't kill anybody. Even the guy who fucked him over, he ends up not killing him. He ends up shooting the earring off the guy who shot his target just to make a point for his client, but doesn't actually kill anybody. But in the other one, he kills two guys, but they're both like actually one of those stories that goes out of its way to make the guy he killed, like the main like antagonist of that story, is like a super fucking pervy old man who like has a camera with like a zoom lens on it where he like turns all his lights off at night and then like takes like peeping Tom pictures of his neighbors. So it's like it's going, and that like has nothing to do with the story basically at all of like what I mean, kind of, I guess, like because his whole thing is like he works for the US government running spy satellites, and so there's like this whole voyeuristic thing about him, but like you really didn't need him to have like naked pictures of like a bunch of random women all over his house. Because he takes like surreptitiously acquired naked photos of his neighbors while they're like in the shower and shit with a zoom lens. But like it's in there so that when Golgo fucking shoots his eyes out of his head at the end of the story, you're like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like it's just how they go,
Yeah.
But then after that, San Francisco traffic saves Golgo because the army can't like get to him basically because the traffic is so shitty, and then he drives off an uncompleted freeway like in Speed, and lands on the other side. Then that's where he kills like one of the higher ups in this army, CIA, FBI, thing,
that's
but he gets shot in the chest. Yeah. So
yeah,
then he has to like take a break, just take a little vacation.
Goes and takes a vacation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Puts heels up, and then like he asks for some help. That's where the scene where it's like, hey, like I killed John F. Kennedy, and like army guys, you gotta like find cooler guys to help me kill Golgo.
More anime bullshit. Gold and silver, the most dead. I guess second and third most deadly assassins after Golgo 13.
They go through all this shit where about like I need these two guys out of jail. It's like, who are those two guys? And this is where they do the like anime exposition voiceover. which I do like, which is that like the U.S. did a secret experiment in like the jungle, and then what they did was there were like 2,000 revolutionaries, and they dropped off like 40 assassins, and within 2 weeks, all of them were dead except for two.
So
And not only did they live, they killed the 2,000 guys, and it's like okay. And
So
now they're in jail.
I thought that was going to go. So they specifically say after 13 days, all but two of them were dead. And so I was like, so one of them is Golgo and the other one is like some other guy who's just as badass and he's going to like have to fight the other guy. But then it takes a left turn and they're like, no, they're like Bishonen fucking pretty boy anime bad guys named Gold and Silver who are in federal prison because after that they couldn't stop murdering.
Yeah. No, I guess maybe I've just watched more anime than you. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be two guys. There's no like there. I was like, there's no way that's Golgo 13. Like that's
Right.
definitely two guys who are gonna be like, we're cool, and Golgo will just shoot him in the face.
Right.
Which is actually kind of exactly what happened.
No, dude. He fucking throws a grenade in that guy's mouth.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it explodes his fucking head, and it rules.
He doesn't explode his head. He explodes his head.
That's
off
true. It explodes his head
body.
off his body. That's right. It does. Yeah.
And which is a very weird sequence, actually. It
He
doesn't
runs
quite...
open mouth screaming at Golgo once he's been
Yeah,
like, kind of fucked up. Like that's his last resort attack is just run screaming at him.
Yeah, but it's like it didn't have to be. He
Right,
chose
right,
to do
yeah,
that.
right.
And Golgo's like, I don't know if he's gonna fucking... He's gonna give me this. Like, if life gives you lemons, you stick a grenade in a dude's mouth.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yep.
That's after the one with like the gold robot arm like punches him a bunch, and then
Right.
well, I don't remember. He shoots him in the head or
No,
something. I don't
he
remember.
fucking pistol whips him to death. He bashes his
pistol
skull
whips
in
him,
with the
that's
butt of
right.
his revolver.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
repeatedly. That's the other thing. Like again, like people say, like, oh, Gogo's like he's a Mary Sue. He's good at everything, or whatever. And like in that sequence, he's just like he's getting fucked up pretty badly, and he's just desperately like smashing this dude's head with the butt of his revolver to stop him from like trying to rip his guts out with his robot arm, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he puts a grenade in the other guy's mouth. That's after.
I mean, that's really like that's kind of the rest of the movie. Is that
Yeah.
after that scene, it's like he's just like, all right, I'm gonna go kill the oil guy, and then he's just running up this building, and he fights Snake in an elevator.
Snake in an elevator, yeah.
Which was like that was like probably the best fight sequence in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I thought. Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. Kills his ass, and then
kills
he
his
fucking
ass, yeah. Sure
pistol
does.
whips Gold to death, and then
Sticks a
grenade mouth
in
Silver to death.
And then he goes up to, and so there's a sequence earlier, right before the first sexual assault, where the daughter-in-law is like, "You're obsessed with killing Golgo 13, but like, why? Someone hired him. Why aren't you trying to kill the person who hired Golgo 13 to do the job?" And he's like, "I can't answer that right now." So we find out as Golgo gets to the top of the tower, so the bad guy, after Gold and Silver get fucked up, then he's just like, all right, he gives up, basically. He's just like, calls off the attack dogs and is like, let him come and get me. So Golgo gets up there and the guy throws himself through like a floor-to-ceiling window, and as he's like careening down towards the pavement, he remembers his son's suicide note, which, I mean, I guess I just said it's a suicide note. So the thing is that the son didn't feel like he could live up to his dad's expectations of running this giant multinational corporation, but he was too much of a coward to kill himself, so he paid Golgo 13 to assassinate him. And then his dad's response was to send like the army, the FBI, and the CIA all after Golgo 13 to try to get rid of him because his son paid him to shoot him. And the one of my favorite touches in this thing is that the guy is he's thrown himself off a skyscraper, basically. He's Hans Grubering towards the ground.
Yeah.
But Golgo 13 is not about to let this fucking dude escape being killed by Golgo 13. So he
Yeah.
walks to the smashed out window, aims his revolver down the side of the building, and right before the guy impacts the pavement and splats, he shoots him in the fucking head. So he did not commit suicide. He was shot and killed by Golgo 13 before exploding into like a pool of blood on the pavement in front of his office building. Which I think is just, I mean, again, we were talking about how he kind of doesn't have a lot of character, but I think like that is to me, that's a really nice character beat, right? Like it shows, like that tells you something about Golgo 13, right? This dude will not have the satisfaction of killing himself. Like he came after me and I swore I was going to kill him. So even if it's only going to kill him like a fraction of a second before he impacts the pavement,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one to kill him.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Which is just great. So you see the bullet go straight through the center of his forehead because Golgo never misses. And then he hits the pavement and explodes into a pool of blood. And that's pretty much it. And then the last minute of the movie is super weird. He's walking in San Francisco, I guess. He's just walking down the street
Somewhere.
in the rain in his trench coat with his ascot. As he does, and
nice ascot.
Yeah, and he sees the widow, who for some reason has now become a prostitute, which doesn't really make sense, especially since
I've been waiting for this. This is when like I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah,
movie.
no,
Like,
take over, man.
Women.
Do it.
All right, so we skipped over a thing, which is fine because I wanted to bring it up in the context of this. Which this whole movie is like we already mentioned. This movie's like misogynistic and shitty, but so there's a scene that is in the service of like Dawson is the oil bearing guy. To make Dawson the ultimate bad guy, they show that he's been training his granddaughter, so his son and his son's wife.
Oh yeah, we did skip over that, right? I said like, the butler has to get it, but I didn't explain how. The butler gets it.
So they've been training the granddaughter to like shoot. So that she can attempt to assassinate Golgo 13, because he wouldn't assume that a kid would do that.
That's actually another nice character beat, but you should finish what you're saying.
Yeah. And so what ends up happening is like, and it's like I said, it's in service of look at how far this guy is like willing. Look at how shitty this dude is. He's gonna make a child like try to murder this guy. Like to get his revenge. Like that's obviously like gonna fuck up her life forever and like blah blah blah, right? Like that's what it's supposed to be. But it's like it just comes across as kind of weird. Because the actual scene that ends up happening is like she has a teddy bear with a gun in it and shoots at Golgo 13, but of course Golgo 13's like the perfect assassin, so he like dodges the bullet. And then the butler's there, and he just pulls out a gun.
Does he actually dodge it, or is she just like not actually that good of a shot because she's like 8 years old and shooting a gun out of a doll?
I mean, probably I don't know, both. I don't know. I watched this like a week and a half ago, and
yeah,
I'm very tired right now because I worked today, so I don't remember. But you know, and then the butler pulls his gun out, and he, of course, Golgo just shoots him and walks away.
And so that's another. I like that he doesn't kill the little girl, even though the little girl shot at him. Like again, that kind of tells you a little something about him. Like,
well, but that's the thing is like so that right before that, like that's where the scene where the wife or ex-wife or no widow couldn't think of it. Is saying like, why aren't you going after the person who hired him? And that's where that scene is. And so Dawson just goes like, listen, just talk to the butler. He's going to give you as much money as you want. Just get out of here. Like kind of a thing. Right. Again, proving that guy is like a total piece of shit.
Right.
And so she says like she leaves. She's like at that point been like raped a bunch and she like leaves her daughter with him. So it's like I feel like this movie's and then later she becomes a prostitute. And so I think that is like indicative of this movie's like position towards women, which is that like it's bad. Its position is bad. Yeah, but it's like I think it's like this is her punishment. Like she's not pure anymore because she's been raped a bunch and she like abandoned her daughter. She was like so I don't know like bad, just bad. I don't know. She's such a like wicked woman that like she would abandon her daughter to this garbage guy that like obviously now she's a prostitute because that's all like women are good for. You know what I mean? I feel like that's something like I don't even know because it's like so whatever it is that they're trying to communicate with this character is like so fucked up. I can't even like fully comprehend it. So it's just like to me it's like a thing where it's like I don't know what this is trying to say, but it's fucked up, and it makes sense to me that they're trying to say it because this movie is fucked up. Like, does that make any kind of sense?
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree. I mean, I don't. I'm not saying your read is wrong because I'm not interested in
Yeah.
telling you that your read is wrong. Um, and obviously, like I'm not sold that authorial intent matters in a lot of cases, but I don't think that's what they're. I don't think that's what they're trying to say. I'm not sure what they're trying to say.
That's the only thing I can think of because it's so weird, and it's like, what happened to the little girl? Also, incidentally,
Right now, yeah, because now her grandfather's dead, and you know whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's like just kind of an aside, but I'm also just wondering. It's like every woman who's in this movie wants to fuck Golgo 13 or does, and then is immediately murdered, and then you know what I mean? Except for this one, who becomes like a prostitute who everyone is just ignoring. And it's like at the end of that last scene, she's just like talking to a bunch of people, and everyone's just like walking past her, like not looking at her. Like I think that's part of it too, is that
right.
she's in a she's in a crowd, and a bunch of faceless people are like walking past her, like not even acknowledging her. I think that's like
Right.
a part of it where it's like she's become something like so horrible because of what she's done, and it's like,
I
well,
mean,
first of all, that's offensive to sex workers. Second of all,
right. Yes.
like it's what did she do? She got raped. Like how is that like, you know what I mean? And then it's like that's what I was saying is like are they trying to say something about like because she like abandoned her daughter, which obviously that's not great, but also like is that what they're trying to say? Like I don't know. Like
I think.
what
I mean,
happened
the
to the
only
daughter? The
but
daughter just like disappeared into the fucking ether. Like
right.
what? Like did she
Yeah. I
take the
mean,
daughter with
that's
her? I don't know. It's not clear. Like it's just
right.
not. It's not central to the movie's plot. So they're just like, so fuck it. But then they try to have this scene at the end that like I feel like is trying to say something, but I don't know what it is. I have no
Right.
fucking idea.
So
I know it's shitty. I just
right.
don't.
Right. Right.
I just don't know what it
I
is.
mean, I guess the only other read that I could offer as like
Yeah.
an alternate read to that would be that like she should have taken the money, right? But she was too proud to take the money because fuck that guy and his money.
And so now
Because
she has
he
no
and so
other
now she
skills.
has no other right. So like I and
Like,
like I don't like that reading either, but it's a little
yeah,
more
that
charitable than like, you know, she's impure because she was raped and now she has to be a prostitute. Um, but I think it's just weird that that scene is in there because I think I wouldn't wonder what happened to the granddaughter if that scene wasn't in there.
yeah,
But that scene is in there. And
yeah.
so it's like, wait. So now where's the daughter or the granddaughter? And
Yeah.
um the other thing that's weird is she sees and recognizes Golgo,
Yeah.
which would she had she seen him
Yeah,
before?
how would
Would
she
she? How
know?
does she know what he looks
How does she
like?
know what he looks like? It's just I think it's just like everybody in this movie knows who Golgo 13 is.
It's like you're
Like
not going to be a very
literally.
effective assassin if everybody knows what he looks like.
I mean, you are if you're Golgo apparently,
Well, right, yeah, right. So
because he always gets the job done, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
then he starts walking away from her. She pulls out a gun and she fires,
yeah,
but then it cuts to just him and he's just still walking away in the rain without a bullet hole in him. And like it doesn't that whole sequence just kind of loses me. Like I would the
yeah.
director is apparently dead now, but maybe there's a DVD commentary somewhere that can explain to me like what he was going for, cuz just like, well, like you were saying, like there is. I mean, your read is, again, like, I don't want to. Your read is valid, so like that's not good if that's what they were trying to say. The other read is also not great, of just like, fuck that guy, so now I have to be a prostitute, like I can't work in a fucking coffee shop or whatever. I mean, it's just weird. It's just,
Show her like playing the piano like very well
yeah,
earlier, and it's like,
right.
and she was like the wife of like a very very rich person who like just not like that's not nobody who's gonna get married to that kind of person, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not saying they're
Right.
necessarily like smart or good at a lot of things, but I'm like, you don't just like
And
walk into.
also, what happens to his money now that he's, right? Because she was married to the son.
Yeah,
There's no son because he's dead. Now the dad is
yeah,
dead. We know the wife is dead because that's like addressed multiple times. So
yeah.
wouldn't she probably get the money?
No,
I guess not. I mean that, yeah. It's just
it's
just
also,
shitty to women. Whatever. It's shitty to that woman, no matter
yeah.
what. Right.
She's
Like,
the only
it's
woman who
she's the only
lives through
woman
the
who
movie.
lives through the movie. Right. So it's just, yeah.
So
It's not
yeah,
great.
it's. I mean, I'm also wondering if it's like if they're trying to say something about like, well, she's a prostitute, so like obviously she's capable of murder. You know what I mean? Because it's
I
like, yeah,
guess.
she definitely has a gun and is ready to use it at a moment's notice. And it's like, wait, what? This is the only character in the movie who hasn't done anything violent or even really been involved and has just had violence done to them. And they're like, yeah, she's a murderer. It's like, okay. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's just very weird. It's very weird. Yeah, and I don't know what that last shot. I think if they ended it on her like recognizing him and shooting and like firing and then the gunshot and it fades to black, which it does, but it like fades back in for like a second
Right, and
and it
shows
just
him
shows him
walking
by
away.
himself.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it would be fine if it just ended with the gunshot, but that's obvious. Maybe that's not a very like Golgo 13 kind of ending because he like never he gets away. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. It's fucking weird and not good.
Yeah. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. The ending, last minute isn't so weird or bad or out of left field that it makes me hate the movie retroactively.
I
Um,
mean, I don't remember if I said this during the Fist of the North Star thing because it was more about the TV show, although the movie is also that. But like Fist of the North Star, the TV show, got super misogynist, like crazy. And it's like, I love JoJo to death, but there's some episodes that are extremely cringe, as the kids say
so,
these days.
I mean,
So it's like sometimes that's like kind of just, you can, like you were saying earlier, like you can not agree with something and still like it, you
right.
know?
I
Yeah.
think, I mean, Japan has a history with the way that it, as a
Yeah.
nation, treats women and people who are not Japanese. And like, I think there's a weird, like, some, big anime dorks, and I'm not levying this criticism at you, Alex, but there are, like, I think some anime nerds who, like, well, I know there are because I've gotten into arguments with them on Twitter,
Ugh.
who like fetishize that, like, oh, it's just like, it's like, like Japan had like trad wives longer than we did, basically. But even in Japan, like, that's changing, and has been for the last 20 or so years at least. But like, you know, Japan did not have a good relationship with women, women's independence in a lot of
Yeah,
ways
I
for
mean,
a
this is a
long time. And
this is a this is an anime from 1982, so it's
83, I thought, but yeah, right.
83, whatever.
And Fist of the North Star
Not
was
that
in the
much changed.
80s as well.
Yeah, it was around the same time. So yeah, it's like a lot of
And I mean, it's
a
not like
lot of things.
American movies are necessarily better, some
It's
are,
just
but not a
some
lot
are,
of
but
them.
some are just differently misogynist.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of hey, surprise! I don't know if you know this. There's a lot of stories out there where like women are not treated well.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Shocking,
Newsflash
I
to
know.
anyone who's ever watched anything ever.
Right. Right.
I'm not familiar with that actually.
Oh, really? You've never seen anything?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
well, there's a lot
wild,
of
right?
stuff you should check out.
I don't know what you've been watching.
But Yeah, I don't know what. So based on our really lengthy synopsis there, Ethan, what do you think? What do you think you would think about the anime?
The moment of that conversation that made me most think that I really missed something is the shooting the bullet down the skyscraper and hitting the guy in the head just before he hits the pavement. I think that's great.
Yep.
I'm in favor of that.
Yep. That's sick as hell. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I've already said my piece about agreeing with the subtext of a work, but like I think this is. I mean, again, part of it is that I have a soft spot for '80s anime and sort of the style of. Obviously, something like Akira is a way higher budget production than this. Even something like the first Vampire Hunter D movie, which came out in the '80s, is a higher production budget than this. But there's just a style to '80s anime that is not the same. It's more textured than '70s anime and '60s anime for sure. Although when I was younger, when I lived at home, every time I watched anime, my mom would be like, "Why this all looks like Speed Racer?" That was her. That was always her thing. That was her frame of reference. This all looks like Speed Racer. But and '90s anime, to a certain extent, but it starts getting like a little too clean even in the '90s to some extent. And now that it's all done with computers, again, there's still modern anime that I do like. I liked Death Note. It gets a lot ridiculous in the second season, but like the cat and mouse stuff in that show is really good. But it's just like it's just a little too clean, you know. It's sort of similar to what I think Ethan and I were saying before we started recording, which is, or maybe it was after we started, but like there's the superhero movies they're almost like they're too sterile. And I like those. I mean, I said earlier, I think I liked Spider-Man No Way Home. And I mean, I like a lot of those movies, but compared to something like Bloodsport or a Bruce Lee movie, or even like The Exterminator, like they're too clean, they're too sanitized, they're too focus tested, they're too, you know, and what I like about this era of anime is that like it feels similar to what Ethan, what you were saying about the first live action movie, is like it feels kind of grimy and kind of gross, but it's still there's some moments in it that are really stylish and kind of kind of gorgeous, like when he shoots the woman on the horse and there's that watercolor painting of her like in silhouette with the ocean behind her, and I just, that is appealing to me, that there is a grittiness and a griminess and all the, not everything has been sanded down to, I liked it. I think it's worth like 90 minutes of your time if you like this kind of shit.
That's I kind of don't. I think there's better stuff you can watch. I think like it was fine. Like for me, like, hey, just spend like 2 hours of your time, like, or whatever it was, 90 minutes, whatever, watching this thing so we can talk about it. Like that was okay, even though I didn't really enjoy like I was watching it and I was like, oh, every once in a while like a few of these frames are nice, and it's like, but overall I'm watching this like soulless story about this kind of unrepentant asshole shitbag who's just killing a bunch of other shitbags who also want to kill him, and also let's just like have a bunch of shitty things happen to women, and it's like, all right, well,
I mean,
none of
how
that
many
is
movies
good.
you like also are like fit that description to some extent.
I guess if you want to be super reductivist about it, yeah, technically, but but I would like to think that the things that I like are not quite. This is like the bleakest version of like any kind of an action movie. You know what I mean? It's like there's a just, I don't know, man. There's just like a something that's hanging about this that is just, it's clear. Like I said, there's clear, been saying there's like this clear misogynist haze over all of it, and then it's just like I said, it's soulless and joyless. It's just like, I think it's almost like, it's like, what if like an international thriller intrigue story was not thrilling, and then like what if an action movie kind of like had no action, and what if like a character driven like action movie like had no characters? It's
Wow, that
like,
sounds great. That sounds awesome.
It's like the framework of a James Bond movie, but like with none of the accoutrement. Like it's just like you're watching the foundation, like only of a house. That makes no sense, but
now I think, Ethan, if I can be so bold, I kind of want you to watch the anime movie before we do the next episode.
I can report in on it next time.
Yeah, because I want to know which side of this you fall on.
Is Ethan the tiebreaker? Is that what you're saying?
Kinda, yeah. Well, I want to know if I'm the weirdo here, because I mean, again, I thought, you know, I
didn't
so here's another example. I saw right before the bad times started. My local nonprofit movie house showed Ninja Scroll at midnight.
Yeah.
And I went to see Ninja Scroll. And holy shit, if you want to talk about a movie that hates women, my God.
Oh yeah, Ninja Scroll, absolutely.
That's another one where there's like multiple scenes of sexual assault.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is like more fetishized than this movie. I think like some of there's sequences in that movie where it's like, this is a sexual assault, but the way it's framed is kind of horny for this moment, which is gross.
Yeah.
You know?
It's been a long time, but I remember even in like my pre-woke, like shitty days where I was like a edgelord, like douchebag, I was like, man, this movie's fucked up.
But also, I came away from that movie being like, this movie fucking rules. Like,
nah, I've never liked that movie at all. I thought it was like just gross.
A ton of fucking super sick, like, dudes getting cut up with swords and blood geysers and fucking like really, really stylish stuff that, you know, just the way the style of the animation and the action sequences and stuff is just like, wow, man, they don't make them like this anymore. And, you know, again, that movie, it feels like whoever made that movie really has a fucking bone to pick with the whole female gender. You know, every woman on Earth is like an MRA made that movie, but probably not really. I don't know. The director probably is not actually an MRA, but it doesn't treat the female character, the like sole female character basically is not treated super well in that movie. She gets raped a bunch of times and whatever, but like,
I was gonna say, like, yeah, like that's one way to put it. Shit, like that movie's awful,
you know. But I still think it's fucking sweet. So
yeah, I can't follow
not
you.
Those parts, obviously, but like,
even when I was like a baby nerd growing up on the baby internet in the early 2000s, like, and everyone was like, "Yeah, man, this movie's fucking great." I was like, "Nah, I don't know. This is just kind of gross. I can't get in on this." Like I said, even in my like pre-woke days, I'm like, I listen. I'm gonna watch like, I don't know, Evangelion. Bad shit happens to women there. Is that all right? Can I watch that?
Evangelion, where the hero jerks off on his unconscious like object of his affection, just not his girlfriend, just a girl he has a crush on, and she's unconscious in a hospital bed, so he rubs one out.
That's end of Evangelion though. We don't talk about that. No, let's not start talking about Evangelion. I can go on for a long. It's already like been a million hours.
It has. This has been a really long episode. So I mean, I don't know. That's I don't know. Ethan, do you have thoughts on Ninja Scroll? Where do you come down on Ninja Scroll?
I never heard of Ninja Scroll. My last question that I have is is the Golgo 13 animated movie less than 3 hours long?
Yes. It's 90 minutes.
Okay, I'll watch it. That's fine.
It's on Amazon Prime.
IMDb TV, which is like through Amazon because Amazon owns IMDb. But it's
that
ads.
explains why they make you watch ads, but that makes sense because I kept seeing ads for IMDb TV, and I was like, why? I guess they're like the sole advertiser for this. It's like, I guess they're just advertising themselves. Yeah.
But yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, so
sounds good.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
I'll be the arbiter of this movie. Sole arbiter of this movie.
Of that. Yes, please. But that's going to do it for this month. And we have no idea what we're doing next time, so can't even give you a teaser.
Did we not know?
We talked about doing like last year in review type of stuff, but I thought we were going to do that this time, and then we did this instead. So I don't know if now we're going to do that next time. We might. Who knows? Otherwise, we'll watch something else. I don't know.
I've got an idea, but I'll leave it for when we turn off the recording.
All right, cool. Well,
maybe
I'm
we'll
gonna
talk
do
about
that
Golgo
in just a
13
second
again.
because it's been 2.5 hours now. So thanks.
Good Lord.
I don't think anybody is watching at this point, but if you are still watching this, thanks for hanging out. We've been the Action Cast, and we'll be back next month with something else. Good night.
Okay, bye. We did it.
We